Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor Redemption. My name is Mike Bloom. New week, new deep dive, or should I call this a meep mive? It's very early in the morning for me, but regardless, crack of dawn to talk to this man today. He came out for his third season. He passed the 100-day mark, and hopefully he's here to keep it 100 with me. I know he is still contracting severe bottomness, but I feel I'm on the top of the world whenever I get the chance to talk with him. One, the only Simon Mee.
Hey, how are you, Mike? What an intro.
I'm doing stellar right now. How are you doing, man? I mean,
Mate,
obviously, you got to experience your first live reunion. It's been a couple of weeks since then. What is it?
mm,
What was it like to kind of like immerse your mind back into Survivor for a brief portion of time before sort of getting out of the pool again over the past fortnight or so?
yeah, wow, like what an absolute finish for me and like my career. Like it was such a cherry on top to have a live finale, and like that's the first time I've caught up with an entire cast. Like even we just haven't had that since COVID, and yes, it was mind blowing to have everyone in one place, and the vibes were high, and it kind of helped, I guess, the kind of communication across the season, kind of keep everyone like a little bit more involved as well. Even even like the early boots because they knew that it was something to look forward to and kind of come back and be a part of. So that was all pretty fun. But then like the night was it was so special. It was one of the best nights of my life. Like just to have everyone there and knowing that that was kind of like a bit of my retirement party and to have like alumni there. We had someone from every single Australian Survivor season
Oh,
there.
wow.
Yeah, which was incredible. And it's just such a great send off. Like for me or what I made, like what I took from it personally, and the backdrop, the night, the celebrations, yeah, just seeing the raw reactions and emotions from Caleb and Jackson and stuff. It was all really cool. So it's just such a great night.
Speaking of the backdrop, I had heard from people who were there that, we'll get into obviously your very emotional sentiments towards the end. Did it get cut off a couple times by some passerby boats?
My God, so yeah, I got a. It was just such a typical thing for me. It was the perfect finish for me. In that last question that I got asked, how important is Survivor to you? I still try to keep it short and sweet, but there was a section in the middle where like there were the Manly
Right.
ferries going like all night, and they were beeping at like big honks. But the longest one went when I was giving an answer, and I'm like, do I think it got to the point where it's like, oh, but this is just normal, like it's all part of like the scene and what we are,
Right.
like you just follow through with it. But it was like a
George hired a
comedic.
boat or anything to pass
It
by
was
at the
it
time.
was comedically long, like so long, and being like, oh my God. And I didn't like. I was crying at the time and very emotional, and it's just I'm like, even when the editors aren't screwing me in this game, like someone else is. Like it was just such a funny little like throwaway. Yeah, just one of those things, right?
Well, let's talk about you setting sail on your third voyage here on the Survivor Seas, because we need
Let's
to
go.
rewind all the way before this experience started. Obviously, you did, Brains versus Brawn, you did Heroes versus Villains. Did you ever think you'd come back for a third time? And when did you end up sort of getting something floated out to you, I imagine, by production of like, hey, we're doing this season, it might involve returnees. Are you interested?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like I felt like after Heroes versus Villains, I felt like I didn't need to scratch the itch again, but I just kind of knew that I wasn't done. And just the fact that there hadn't been an All Stars 2, the fact that there hadn't been another like full returnee season since, Brains v Brawn, or, there hadn't been a fans v favorites or something. And then, we saw a snippet with Australia versus the world, which I wasn't contacted for. I wouldn't have expected to be at that time. Like I didn't think that I was, in that kind of tier one of the, even in a cut down season. If it had been a full season, I would have been upset if I didn't get called. But then I just wasn't expecting to get a call in God, it was like early April last year. I got in, full 12 months kind of thing. I made this whole thing a 12-month ordeal. I just didn't expect it to be so soon. And when my phone rang for the first time, my heart just sank in a
Oh,
way
wow.
that there was a flash of excitement, but I knew the reality of what 12 months looked like, or a commitment to this show. And if you know me, you know that I lean in with my whole heart, my whole self. And yeah, it was a huge sacrifice to make at the time. Going through some yeah, just challenging personal, like we're personal family, matters, what we were kind of going through with our family. And yeah, I was kind of like back and forth on, is this the right thing for me to pick up, the right opportunity for me to go again? And, at the end of the day, yeah, it worked out, and was able to, make a few sacrifices. And my wife made the biggest ones to, stay at home with my toddler this time, whilst I'm out running around a beach in Samoa and my budgie smugglers having the time of my life. And it was, it worked out. And I think that was kind of a little bit more motivation to just throw absolutely everything at it. But it was heavily considered. And this was kind of my last window of opportunity as well. Like we want to grow our family, and I feel like, growing, like trying to leave with two kids, like with two kids at home, is like being outnumbered as a parent is
Yeah.
full on. So, just we have one at the moment. Bonnie now is 2.5, and she was two. She was like just about to turn two after I got back, and it was a really challenging time. And my wife she's a very successful, girl boss. Like she's great at what she does. She flies very close to the sun, and she's the breadwinner in our house, and she's it's like so great at, like, holding our family together and holding that up. And then I'm just out going off of, running around, doing having these side quests kind of thing. So I'm so grateful to have her support to be able to do that. But like I couldn't always, like, this was kind of the last window that I had to go and do this before it's like, you need to pull your head back in, you need to do this. And that has kind of also made my retirement a little bit more solidified as well.
What was your mentality then once you made that decision? Because listen, you had called yourself the worst player in Australian Survivor history. You see these Reddit receipts, but like having had all that experience under your belt from your previous 2 seasons, did that inform your thinking of how you should play going into this third time out?
I actually haven't called myself the worst player in Survivor history. I had echoed what other people had said. I don't believe that, but for
Good. Come
yeah,
on.
100%. But like, it's fun to lean into it, and especially for a season like Redemption, when I found out, like,
Yeah.
what that was. I'm like, I got the call first, and then I found out what the theme was, and I'm like, well, I completely understand why you called me. Like, it's part of my it's always gonna be part of my journey. It's like it was the perfect finish for me. And yeah, I leaned into it. Like, like hapless, I completely agree with. Like, I've been very unlucky, but I never think like I've actually been bad at this game. But I think, it's kind of been fun to lean in. And that's kind of like, you generate the character. Like, people, this is an entertainment product, and people love, you know, the people who love watching this show, they love cheering for and cheering against people. And I'm just so glad that people were, had previously cheered against me in Brains v Brawn as the cocky alpha male. I'd had enough time across the 3 seasons to be able to show my whole self, to be able to come through and cut through the edit and show the different side of me to, yeah, to people who were like, I can't believe I'm cheering for Simon in 2026 for the guy I saw in Cloncurry, all those years ago. So it's like, it's been pretty surreal kind of seeing that go 360. And like, I don't think I did anything differently in terms of who I was or who I am, but the opportunity to kind of go on that journey was kind of crazy. So, but
Yeah.
you lean into it, and you have some fun along the way.
Well, you are an incredibly resourceful person, to say the least. So I'm curious, once you get this inkling, right, of, okay, there's going to be returnees involved in some aspects, how much did you know about who you were going to be playing alongside? Were you trying to ferret out information about who was going to be alongside you in the season?
The first answer was like, no, I didn't want to. Like, I kept, after Heroes versus Villains, where so much information got leaked and we kind of knew exactly who was playing of the returnees, this one was like, I need to keep my mouth shut for me. I want to, like, I'm not going to tell anyone. I will deny it till the day I die, kind of thing. So it was very much so, didn't tell a soul. I did a podcast with Ryan Brink before I went out, and he shared the information that Brooke was playing, and so that was huge for me. So I knew about that about a week out, and then Mark actually gave me a call before, like, after he got the call, saying, "Look, I've been asked and approached. Have you got like any recommendations on, like, just negotiating with production on getting paid to go back?" And was able to help him through a little bit. And it was just the right time to tell him. It was kind of heartbreaking to have let myself down at a point where I was actually telling someone else that I was playing within the alumni, but I trusted Mark in a way that, like, he's going out, I wasn't going to blow that for him or me or anything like that. So yeah, at that time, I gave him the advice and be like, hey, like, I'm playing as well. So we kind of had that understanding there. Had a couple of conversations about the broader game, but didn't actually, like, we made no deals, we made no agreements. It was fair game. There wasn't any pre-gaming as such there. There was you're going out, I'm going out, we'll be there. Let's have fun. We'll have a good relationship, whatever, in terms of the enjoyment at its purest. But there was no handshake deals or anything there, which was really great. And I'm glad that we were able to go in like that. And then to see Harry out there was just see him get out of the Uber when we got to the airport was just amazing. As someone who knowing there was only going to be 4 returnees, and then seeing Harry as someone who I was friends with, hadn't had any crossover with seasons or anything like that. I think I did my exit interviews for Heroes versus Villains at Harry's house when I was in WA, like for Flick's wedding, like a couple of years ago, like crazy. But I haven't had any, there was no bad or good blood when it came to the game. It was all just pure friendship outside, which was really nice. And so to see those kind of players there was like, I was excited and probably more so relieved as well by the mix. But I didn't spend too much time dwelling on who it could have been, because, like, I had other shit I needed to sort out before going out. Like I had other priorities I needed to get in line before I worried about who was going to be out there. And we have how many Australian Survivor players? We must be pushing the 250 mark now, to maybe 230-ish, I think, overall. And so, like, I'm not going to, like, rack my brain about who is and isn't going to be there on the off chance that I see them out on an island.
Listen, there's someone who may or may not usually host this podcast, who may or may not have accused you of holding a one-day ORG to try to suss out the gameplay of some of your fellow returnees. Can you confirm or deny that?
I can partly confirm and partly deny that, but there were part of my preparation that I did 2 things. But it wasn't like I did host an org. I hosted with Dylan Hedder, and he does the Equilibrium EQ online, and it's very similar kind of Survivor style game played in different chat rooms. He kind of kicked that off in 2020 during COVID. I organized one of them with a bunch of Survivor players just to get my head back in the game. And I also organized an in-person, and Harry ended up playing that org, which was just by chance. And it wasn't to suss out who was playing. It was just to get my head thinking, like playing a game, just thinking, just in that space. How can I get people thinking, moving, shaking, And then I held a game of Blood on the Clock Tower in my backyard around a fire. And Mark, being a Brisbane Survivor alumni, came along to that. And it was pretty funny that, like, the 2 things in preparation that I did, I ended up sharing with 2 of the 4, 2 other and me, 3 of the 4 players were kind of covered there over that. So yeah, it's just, it's one of those things like the Survivor alumni, like you roll deep with your friends, but it wasn't to suss out who was actually playing.
All right, well, let's go into the grimoire of the people you were playing alongside. Then perhaps Simon used a bit of
Nice
blood on the
start.
cleric parlance, because so you end up showing up here, and yes, you may have known who was going to be alongside you as a returnee, but obviously the big factor going to be all of these newbies. So you end up getting settled in to this new beautiful camp on Bounty Beach. Who were you initially clicking with in those early days? Who did you find you were vibing with the most early on?
Harry, first of all, like that was a natural, like, we just we just knew what we had to do. It was a couple of conversations late at night, and we were just there for each other. But we weren't spending much time together, which was really hard because you're like out in Samoa playing the game we both love with one of your best Survivor friends, and you're not hanging out. It's like so counterintuitive. But it was the right thing to do, and we both knew it. So, there were a lot of great late night chats that we had. The next part was, it wasn't about like individuals for me in the first kind of like couple of days. It was like lay low around camp and work everyone. Like prove myself to be of value to everyone in ways that were very like that when my name would come up, that that person would go, no, Simon is good for my game. So it was more about like the risk mitigation and proving value to individuals and the tribe. After I moved through that kind of phase, it was like Lottie just naturally became my number one, the person I just got along with so well. She was a parent. She just had some great stories and just so down to earth. Like she's just absolute freaking legend. And just there for a good time. She was very aware of the game, as we kind of saw. Like she was so switched on and just got it. And she loved that for her, like not necessarily like the biggest Survivor fan, but knew what the opportunity was and was willing to go balls to the wall for it. We both had this mentality of like, we're not leaving our families at home to go around and fluff this, whether, there are other people who, thought it was a good stepping stone to maybe other reality shows or like, just there for the Survivor element. But yeah, Lottie was just ready to like, rip in. And there were so many times that we just spoke about like, it feels like there are so many people who are asleep at the wheel here right now. And so we just kind of really connected. And like, after like a couple of days, we're like, we should probably formalize this relationship on camera, right? and get something going. And, but yeah, we spent a lot of time together and I absolutely love her. She's such a good egg. But naturally outside of that, my initial 4 in my mind was Harry, Lottie, Paula, and myself. That was kind of most important. But outside of that, I really felt like I had a relationship with everyone and added value to everyone there.
Yeah, talk to me more about sort of like, I guess, your perception, for lack of a better term, because we'll certainly get into later on. Obviously, there was a little bit of anti-returning bias that was happening amongst this cast, but did you get a sense of that from the jump? We certainly heard a lot of that from Lottie towards Harry. Did you feel like people were looking at you a certain way based on what they knew about you from your previous seasons?
Yeah, and I definitely leaned into that. I think that's the whole, lean into like, I'm such a bad player. I'm so clueless. Like I'm just trying to make it work kind of thing. So lean into that. I'm a bad Survivor player to the people there because that's an easy. I don't know these people individually, like as humans, but they have a perception of me for those who have seen my seasons. So lean into that was a big thing. Then I had a lot of people, Paula, for example, Eliza, came up to me and said, "You're very different to the Simon that I expected to be meeting." And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "In what way? What do you mean?" And just the probably just how like in touch and on a human level, like that I just didn't have this huge ego, the ones that you see in confessionals, right? When you've got that moment of it's like, hey, go make TV in front of camera versus I'm trying to be considerate, looking out for people, making sure everyone's just getting like living and surviving and like enjoying their time out on the island, and they're making the most of it. So just trying to accommodate those people there, and I think that kind of softer side is one that's quite often not shown, and we saw so much of it even this season, that like camp life has taken a very much so a backseat over the last couple of years in Australian Survivor to the
certainly
strategy
helps when
side
you
of
were
things.
given the best camp in Australian Survivor history.
Yeah, it was a great leg up. And even on that point, right, something that helped me flourish in the early game is that like winning that shelter at the start made for an opportunity that I hadn't kind of experienced before, where like you don't have that initial kind of conflict opportunity where like some people want to build the shelter and some people want to go off and strategize, and everyone's trying to get to know each other at the start, and like that first 24 hours is very chaotic and a lot happens. But having the shelter built and the fire there and having wood was just such it took the pressure off so many things and just allowed everyone to just relax and socialize. And I really put my finger on that as being such a big influence on the fact that our tribe was very much so harmonious, and we had 2-3 like harmonious vote outs at the start, and the combination of that, and then I spoke to Harry on night one and was like, returning, how are we going to play this? What are we going to do? Do we want to go down a cohesion or a division route? Do we want to look at creating tension within the tribe and either picking sides or being potentially on opposite sides or in the same side, like exasperating, is that the right word, that kind of conflict there? Or do we want cohesion? And Harry was very much so about, he wanted cohesion, and I was more than happy to go along with that kind of plan there. He didn't want conflict at all. And that worked for me. So very quickly, I'm like, okay, well, if we're doing cohesion, I need to work my ass off to ensure that, I would be so helpful around camp and just do what I need to do. And there was a huge difference for me between starting off in Heroes versus Villains and starting off in this tribe, where, and I've always been seen as a leader quite naturally.
Right.
And I'm someone who likes to lead by example, by just getting in and getting things done. Like even building the shelters in my previous seasons or whatever, I wouldn't tell or command people to go off and do things, but people would just naturally come to me, and being a chippy carpenter builder, that would like ask, what do you want me to do? And naturally that kind of fell upon me. But this time around, I was just, instead of having to build the shelter, I could just get in and like, I'm just going to start the fire. I'm just going to like, hey, I've cooked rice before. I'm just going to cook rice. After it's done, I'm going to like wash the pot so we can rinse the beans, and just lead by example there. But instead of having someone like, say, George in the background being the kind of pestering me, being like holding me up in lights, being like, hey, look at Simon, look at what he's doing. He's the leader. He's taking all this control. I had a tribe that really appreciated what I was doing for them. And just by leading by example and just like, oh, these are the things that kind of need to be done. I'm going to go out and grab some firewood. We're going to, wash the pot now and do this. Crack coconuts. Do you want a coconut? Like, how did you sleep last night? Like, just taking care of people's experience there just proved so valuable and made and kind of de-threatens what it meant to be a returnee. And I put myself I did the Tony Vlachos and put myself on house arrest. I just, for the first kind of 4 days, I didn't leave camp. I didn't go have chats at the well. I just sat by the fire, did the housework, kept things clean and tidy and stuff. And that was fantastic. In Daniel's exit interview, he said that Simon was he was so lost out there. Like Simon was so on the bottom of the tribe because he was the last to know what was going on. And that was almost like the greatest compliment I could have got, because it's exactly what I tried to do. And that being the perception of someone else to be fed back to me like that, it was like amazing. So like I was everything I set out to do, I executed perfectly.
Yeah, so what was your sense of these first couple of votes? Because obviously, things are going to turn on this alliance you were trying to really construct, for lack of a better term, soon with the Paula vote. But it's interesting that you talk about how, it seemed like we were sort of a more of a harmonious group, because from our perspective, right, it's, okay, Lottie all of a sudden is throwing Daniel's name out there for his sloppiness, and then you have, Lyndall and Paula and Harry turning on things on Eliza all of a sudden. So from your point of view, was it sort of like being along for the ride, or did you feel like you were nudging those votes at all one way or the other?
No, I was like, I was sitting my hands like, this is not for me to drive. The game isn't won in the first couple of votes. So like, sit back, see how it all kind of goes. If things aren't going my way and I need to interfere, then fine. But the first couple of votes was super boring. Like shout out to the story team, production team for like pulling all that together. The story, I watched those first couple of episodes being like, I was so nervous because, Dave's a new host, and then we've got these couple of super boring tribals, and like, it was just really clear cut about where the votes were going, and everyone knew. And, Daniel went home with the most amount of votes ever, like in Australian Survivor, like crazy, right? But the story was fantastic. I was like, shit, they really polished that and turned it into something. But it was a lot more uneventful from my memory being out there. And it worked. We had there was a larger group, and I think it kind of the part that made its air when Harry was talking about like an 8 and stumbled on it being a 9, and then tried to make it an 8 again, but it still needed to be a 9. That like within say my core 4 group of say Harry, Paula, Lottie, and myself, it was like, who do we like? Who, instead of voting people out, who do we want to bring in? Who's important for us to like bring in, and then who's left out from there. So my big thing was, in a season that I win, I don't want the oldest female going home first. Like, that's just something that I thought that was, if I can make that person valuable to me, who would usually get there, if I can protect them, that might just show that and that person ended up being Loz. That was then going to be like I want to protect Loz. Loz is my number one to the wider group. It appeared like that. And Loz and Lyndall, and I was an advocate for them, for the wider group. And so when so I wanted to, oh my God, it's not Loz. So that was kind of like on the first vote there, and naturally after Daniel's kind of sloppiness was kind of exposed, like it all kind of fell back on him. But then I wanted to be able to showcase that like I'm malleable. I can compromise. If I need to move on Loz, I can do that. But I want to show that like I'm advocating for her, but I'm also willing to compromise. And that ended up being, I think that was beneficial. Like I could see, I felt it. I felt in the conversations that I was able to offer and negotiate, but be a willing partner to work with people in a way that like you could talk things through and not be like locked in on something. So you have preferences, but not like, it wasn't to the detriment. So it's just being easy to work with, and I think that really sets you up for opportunities later on in the game. And quick funny side story, at the finale with Daniel, we were going out the night before we filmed the finale, and we're walking down into a club, I think with Harry and Harry, Eliza, and a few others. It doesn't matter. Walking down, Daniel's telling me a story, and he's saying that he and Simon were out here, and I'm like, putting my hand on his shoulder, I'm like, Daniel, I'm Simon. And like, it was so funny that like it's just such a character trait for him that he's just horrible with names. And I'm like, I'm so sorry that was the thing that has stitched you up, but to see it happen again right now, I got a good. We all had a good laugh about it there. But yeah, poor hapless Daniel.
Well, let's talk about perhaps the name that helped stir this game along a little bit from your perspective. Paula, let's talk about this vote here. What ultimately, because again, it sounds like you were, and certainly this has been corroborated by Paula and Harry a little bit to me, that you were trying to set up this sort of like duo quartet alliance.
Yeah.
So what made you ultimately decide to go with, the tie that Lottie was doing against Paula and Harry? Did it have anything to do with her approaching you and being like, Paula said she was sus on you?
Like in the moment, yes, but it was kind of days in the making already. My relationship with Paula, like I wanted to work. There was no one I wanted to work more with than Paula.
Mm.
Like because as I said, like that core four in my mind of Harry, Simon, Paula, and Lottie was just so powerful. Like we just had so much influence and connections throughout the tribe. Like we were unstoppable. But Paula was the only one who wasn't like drinking the Kool-Aid that I was dishing out to everyone. She saw completely straight through my bullshit, like in the way that I was buttering people up, which was great. But like I was so sincere and genuine with like wanting to work with her, and being like, I know that I needed to land this relationship with her. And I think that I told a couple of people, like, pardon me, when I turned Cameron away from a chat or something, I'm like, I need to land this conversation with Paula, because if I don't land this could all, this could all fall apart for me.
Mm.
And with being so close with Lottie, Lottie was also kind of confirming on the way through. Lottie and Paula were very close, that Paula was still a little bit sus on me, that I hadn't properly landed that, or like, I worked so hard on Paula, but just never really got there. And then it kind of got to this point where like there was just a little bit of tension, which was unfortunate, but it was just the reality of where it was. And I was aware of what Lottie was very transparent with what Paula was saying to her. And then we kind of found ourselves in this like bit of this awkward position where it's like, if you have a diamond, it's down to have Harry and Simon at the top and bottom, and then you have Paula and Lottie on the sides. That like moving from a diamond to a triangle, like that one person is going to benefit from, say, being at the, would rise to the top and have those two people there. Like, and if Paula, if I went home, Paula would get Harry and Lottie to herself. But I actually stood in the same position, that if Paula went home, then I get Harry and Lottie to myself, which was fantastic for me. And then ended up like, I was kind of aware of it, I guess. And then as soon as I saw the conversation with Paula, Asha, and there's another Paula and Asha were definitely there. And I could almost, when people are talking about you, you just kind of know. And I just felt like that was the moment that, I don't know, Paula had like just said something, or must have voiced her concern about me, whether it was actually throwing my name out specifically or just voicing her concern about me even being an awake player who knew what was going on. Like, we have to be cautious of him. Like, I just felt that, and then saw where I was just sitting by the fire doing my thing, and saw that conversation move around. And the next minute, Asha had come up to me and said, Paula's throwing your name out, or Paula is I don't know, skeptical of you or something like that. And I was just like, why don't we vote Paula out? And just, had just another kind of element where it's like, look, I'm willing to compromise, but then if there's an opportunity for like that to pick up wind at this stage of the scramble, then it's like that I'm not opposed to it, as much as I want that core alliance to work for me. And I've also had that learning of, sometimes when it pays to get that monkey off your back. And if it's not quite there and that still is that bit of tension, then you need to like just deal with it sooner rather than later. And when that kind of gained momentum, like that, made a lot of sense. And I think that kind of lined up with, like, say, Lottie's confessionals about like, I don't even know if it was true if Paula put out Simon's name or not, but like the feelings were there and felt by both Lottie and myself, and then obviously through Asha too. Like, there was that level of understanding that it made enough sense to justify it. So it was, I was kind of really disappointed that it ended up going ahead and Paula went home, because she was an absolute blast and a great aware player, who's just, a newbie trying to find her feet. And just got caught in saying the wrong stuff at the wrong time. And biggest downfall was just not trusting someone in a game where you can't trust someone. She didn't trust me, and she had every right not to, but it probably would have been the right thing to do.
Well, in that episode, you also make a comment that you feel like Harry's behavior is a little off, right? This is when he's sort of walking around paranoid, telling you, like, I think it's me tonight. Talk to me about your perspective on that. Did that factor at all into you not telling him about the Paula vote?
Yeah, 100%. It's like I knew exactly that, the votes were like if the votes are going on Paula, I mean, Harry, yes, is my number one. But I just can't tell him at this point. Like it's just not worth the risk. And at the end of the day, like I'm out here playing for me, and I can't. And after this time, the context that helps with this is that Harry had found his person in Paula. Like, he had Jackson, he had Paula, and was very much so comfortable and confident there. And almost like just, he was really, like, they were really, got really close and really spending like a lot of time together and late nights on the hammocks. And like, we were in there, like, having a good time as well. But Paula and Harry, both being from Western Australia, had a, really close connection there. And it became, it just became so evident like how close they were. And just at that point, it's like, oh, Harry, like I love you here, but he stopped working. He sat down and he rested.
Oh.
And so and he was like, he was content. He was content. And he was content with his relationship with Paula when he should have been working on the Lindels or the Riches or the, maybe the Camerons. But it was like, he was like, the newbies were kind of frustrating him a little bit. And whether on the other hand, I was prepared to outwit, outplay, outlast, outwork, like just outwork. Like,
we don't talk about that part on the flag. It's hidden behind a little secret corner.
We will be etched there on. That was my motto this time around. Like outwork. Like the one thing I can do with every minute is do something to benefit my game in some kind of way. Sleep when I'm dead. I will work my ass off. And I was calling Harry, blasphemy, I know, but instead of Dirty Harry, I was calling him Dusty Harry because he'd been out of the game for too long.
And shake those cobwebs off, buddy.
Yeah, and like it was really like kind of sad and hard for me to watch. Like my best friend and the only person who cares about this game as much as me, to watch him. I watched his demise in front of me. Like I watched his failures happening. Like I had opportunities to then go ahead and save him, but like it just wasn't worth it because my game is more valuable than his at the end of the day.
Yeah, I want to talk more about that because we really see Lottie put in a concerted effort in the next episode to keep Harry, to the point where she even is like pushing against Asha a little bit, at least some tension there. Were you making any similar overtures to try to keep Harry in the game despite the fact that everything seemed to be mounting against him?
It really got away from Harry when he threw that vote on Loz to get back in with Jackson. Like he didn't need to do that. Like it made sense for Jackson, but like there was some, like that was on the Eliza vote, but like it just, Loz and Lindell thought therefore was like Simon, Harry, Loz and Lindell. Like that was kind of a four there from their and my perspective as well. But Harry didn't see that in the same way that I saw it and the importance there. So Harry burning that bridge disgruntled Loz so much and almost like ruined my relationship there. And then Asha came up to me and was like, I know you threw that vote on Loz, like, and you said and I'm like, and then I went straight up to Harry and I like grabbed him by metaphorically grabbed him by the ear and dragged him up and be like, you go back to Asha and you tell Asha that you threw that vote on him because I am not taking the downfall for this. Like I know exactly what you're doing right now. But like there were those steps had already been made and he'd already made his bed. And it's like there were opportunities to like divert the course of it, but I needed to do it subtly and I couldn't do it. I couldn't be outwardly advocating for it because I was just aware of like where my place was in the tribe. And there was overall, there was a sentiment of newbies versus returnees for this season, even on such an early. It was always going to be a conversation, right? But this almost felt
Caleb very
like,
much kickstarted that conversation at that tribal council.
oh my god, it was even a thing beforehand. Like, people knew that for the 4 returnees, but the numbers didn't stack up. But it felt like a newbies versus returnees season that heroes versus villains never was when it was an even split.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing that, like, maybe being not isolated from Harry or making him take the fall might have just been okay for my game. And I feel like that was kind of like, pardon me, I feel like that was kind of rebounded. Like, a couple of people have said the same things in their, like, kind of confessionals and stuff like that. So yeah, it worked out well, but it was a heartbreaking one to see Harry go down like that. Like, it was tough.
Yeah, talk to me about, you obviously emotionally embrace him in that moment. Asha actually makes a crack, right, of like, I didn't realize they were that close. How much did that surprise you? Like, because obviously it seems like there were some of those secretive comments made about Rice that did not make the edit. Like, were you actually able to keep your tightness under the radar, or was that more so just a crack made about how tight you guys were out there?
Well, yeah. So look, we did have the Rice communication. It was actually more of like an off-camera thing. Like, when the cameras leave in the morning and you can go and you're in marshalling at camp and you're not allowed to talk about the game, but Harry and I were able to just do a little check-in while we're eating our breakfast before we go off to the challenge. Like, that was kind of when that really kind of came into effect. But yeah, it was a great little plan by Harry. But then, what was the second part of that one?
Well, about the so when Asha makes this comment, like, is this a flag of like, okay, the two of you were actually able to keep how tight you were undercover?
Well, I think that the fact that people were even willing to, like, throw Harry's name out in front of me, I think that was a real, like, testament to how well Harry and I had, like, kind of kept that under wraps to an extent. I think it wasn't completely under wraps, but it wasn't at the people didn't see Harry and I as each other's number ones, right? Like, and that in itself is a huge success for us. So yeah, like, a great result. And then, so not surprising seeing Asha's kind of reaction there. It's probably just more so, like, disappointing that, like, I mean, you've got newbies that don't understand the gravitas of the game right now versus, I knew how much, like, even Harry being one of my favorite players, like, from seasons 1 to 5, before I got my grubby mitts on this show, then see his dream go down in flames or out in flames was was really tough. And just, it was emotional for me, like, emotional seeing my friend lose their third, their shot, their dream and stuff, and being partly responsible for it as well. It was tough. And on that vote, like, I think that like, I really felt like, and we see that Lottie's pitching back to Asha to be like, hang on, it's not the right time, kind of thing. Right. I really felt like that night, as much as Asha and Cameron were pushing for Harry to go home, I really felt going into that it was going to be Jackson kind of naturally there. I think we had like Loz and Lyndall were probably a bit more on the fence about it, but Harry had made Harry's interaction with Lyndall had made her a little bit uncomfortable. Lyndall has actually come out after the fact and said that she would have been willing to play her idol for Harry if if he hadn't been so awkward about it. And I went into that hopefully voting for Jackson there to keep Harry, but then after seeing the blackmail pitch go down, it just is a bit distasteful. It just like entertaining, and I'm so glad that Harry went out in a moment and had a special TV moment as well, like, because he's an entertainer, like, he plays hard. He wasn't just gonna just leave it all to chance. But I felt the room move And people got behind Jackson in that moment, and I had to change my vote at tribal without actually speaking to anyone, and to wake up with the numbers at the end.
Well, yeah, you talk about waking up with the numbers. If Bounty stuck together, if there was no swap and you went back to tribal council, who do you think would have gone? Because this is when Lottie sits you down and is sort of like, hey, you're my number one, but also like Asha's kind of sketching me out a little bit. Did you feel like there was going to be any big vote happening if you guys went back again?
Hang on, so sorry, which vote
Like
would
if
this
if
have
you had
been
gone
on?
back again, Lottie and Asha, as you mentioned, were sort of bristling
So
at one another
before swap. So
before swap, yeah.
who was the last one to go from our tribe then?
So it would have been
Was it
Harry.
Harry?
So if Harry left and then you go back, let's say you go back in
Probably
episode 6.
Jackson. I think it was out of Harry and Jackson. I don't think Jackson had made enough inroads back after that to get back in. I feel like he was kind of like he came back into the fold with me. Like I was definitely there to scoop him up. But in terms of keeping there was a notion of like the hive mind that got spoken quite a lot about at tribal council. I'm not sure of how many people like reflected on that. And there was, you don't want to upset the apple cart. And Lottie had a lot of influence, but Asha was queen bee. And she didn't know it, which is crazy. Like, insane. But she didn't realize the influence that she had over it all, and that her sentiment and thoughts towards people had so much influence in the tribe, which was kind of crazy. But yeah, I think that Jackson would have gone home at that time. I think Jackson would have gone home next.
Well, luckily for Jackson, you get a change in scenery here. Let's get
and just like on that point,
please,
Jackson was targeted very like there were always people who wanted Jackson gone from the very like in the first tribal first scramble. Cameron comes up to me and says he wants to do something big, wants Jackson gone. Like his name was always thrown around. So I think there's like just an impressive part of his survival story of getting through so far. Like Loz wanted him gone like the entire time, ended up working with him, and then still wanted him gone. Like it was just he had faced so much adversity to be able to get through. I thought that was quite impressive and worth noting.
So as you make the crossover from Bounty to Baron, you certainly are still bountiful, I think, in terms of connection. But what was your early sense of where you stood in this tribe? Obviously, you had a lot of people coming over from Bounty. You're going to have some new friends you're going to make in New Baron. What was your sense on the relationships you had in those early days?
Yeah, look, as someone who in my last season came into a tribe swap in the minority of a 3-6 to now being in a majority 6-3 was great. It was nice not to get swap screwed. And then after like having a really, really textbook good opening, innings for me, I was like, everything was really going my way. Like it couldn't have gone any more perfectly for me, I'd kind of say, with like where my position was in the tribe, like having a lot of trust and adding a lot of value to people. Asha was definitely in charge. Like but she still had her blinkers on, and she didn't have a complete awareness of the game and what was happening at that point in time. Lottie was my number one, and that was like very much solidified, and Lottie had a very close relationship with Asha and Cameron as well. So that was like, I knew I was kind of safe within that. And I really felt that like at the time, Lottie was advocating for me, and she had a lot of self-doubt around like her ability in the challenges, and saying that, I kept skull dragging her through them and looking out for her. And she was worried about her challenge prowess, but she was so fine. Like she was so, she definitely stand on her own 2 feet. Like I definitely helped her like on the way through, but yeah, she was so fine. But I was adding value to her, and then just the amount of like the influence that Asha and Lottie had together was so big. Within the Bounty 6, Lottie and Asha like at the top. Cameron was just a +1 for Asha, essentially. I had a good relationship with Loz, Jackson. Lottie was my number one. Ash, I had devoted my shown my devotion to her earlier on. But after, I think it was like, it might have been on the Paula vote where I tapped her on the shoulder and said, whatever happens tonight, I'm voting with you. Like I need to solidify my relationship with Asha. I'm going to vote with you. That's how much I want to prove my loyalty to you. And that ended up paying dividends. And then I had a good relationship with Cameron there. So I was like so sweet in the middle. Then we have Blanche, Ben, and Brooke come over. Immediately, like, get to spend some time with Brooke. Like, she's in a tough spot. Like, let's see what I can do. Like, I am choosing to invest in a shield strategy at this point, knowing and foreseeing in someone who's lived through a difficult spot and has, say, a challenge beast coming into an end game. You want other big challenge beast, big players around, especially being a third-time player now. Like that was just such a huge part of just something that you can't hide, like regardless, right? So it was in my best interest to look after Brooke at the same time, and it also paid dividends with relationships on the other side too. And as soon as we hit that beach, it was really quite clear cut as the edit kind of showed the story. We hit the beach. Ash, Lottie, Cameron. Ash kind of dictated what was going down. We vote Brooke out immediately. We throw the first challenge. Not even like no consideration. What do we think? Hey, how good's our new tribe? Like we won in the majority. It's like Brooke's going home immediately. So just breadcrumbing, like breadcrumb Jackson, breadcrumb. Like, hey, Loz, did you get asked what your opinion was? Like, how are you feeling? Like, what do you think? And I spent so much time in those conversations, like speaking up, making space for Loz to have an opportunity, like asking, hey, like publicly in a forum, how do you feel about this and stuff? And then having like that taken away from her, like was like, well, this is an opportunity for me, right? And then seeing Jackson and Ben had a relationship there, and but Loz and Jackson was a bit of the question mark because Loz wanted Jackson gone and Jackson didn't care about Loz. So there was a bit of an awkward, how does this kind of come together? But then seeing Asha's blinkers for throw the challenge, take Brooke out was just like, I can't work with this moving forward in the long run. Like it's not going to work for my game. And if she decides that she wants me gone, that's not going to be great. And also, we're just merged. Like I've played this game before. I need the experience of a returning player. Like it's night and day compared to a newbie. But like there are 6 tribal councils maybe between now and merge. But like we do not want to. Like we don't need to race to tribal council regardless of how much strength you think our tribe may have. Stranger things have happened, and like I very much so am a big believer in the fact that it is at times better for your game to just not be at tribal than to try to be there and controlling where things go. If you end up at tribal, yeah, roll with the punches. But like if you can avoid it, then yeah, because you never know what can happen. And then it became very clear that Asha is not going to work for me, and I'm just lucky that I had a couple of challenges that that we had the opportunity to win and not end up at tribal. And so that kind of bought me a bit of time to work. I didn't have to work on Brooke. It was fine, but it was more like have the opportunity for the Beauty and the Beast to come together. And I hot take, I really think that if Jackson didn't make it to the final 2, how much that would have probably reflected more on me and how much of an influence that I had on stitching that together. Look, there are a lot of dots out there that needed to happen, but like I connected them. Like, and I'm not saying that like I'm the only one who made it happen, but I had the most to gain and the most to lose by making that happen. And like trying to get Loz and Jackson together and peeled off away from that, like it was a huge kind of it didn't just happen overnight. There was a lot of groundwork that kind of came into that. So I was just really proud of how well I threaded that and pulled that off. And that's why that was so important to me, because it was one time that like I had really just individually moved and shaped and had people and manipulated people and brought the horse to water to actually drink, and that came at my hands and worked for my game. And then along the duration of that period, that like I was able to when the fire challenge kind of came back around, and I didn't want to throw the challenge to send Brooke or Asha home. It's like, if I'm going to blindside Asha, I'm going to make Asha throw the challenge to, because it's more poetic, right? And it came off so well. So seeing that come together as it did just worked so well for my game, and then just had to deal with the fallout from it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, let's stick on Beauty and the Beast
Yeah.
here because, yeah, to your point, from our perspective, it seemed like it was more so Jackson being like, all right, time for me to take advantage of a new situation. But give me your perspective on this. Was this something that you had, like, once, as you mentioned, you had said, okay, Asha is not necessarily good for my long-term game. Did you specifically say, okay, these are the 5? What was the plan that you had come up with to be able to bring this together, and how long did it actually end up taking to actually have you become a majority here?
Yeah. It didn't take long to realize that Asha was just very fixated. She had the blinkers on. She just, when she had something in her head, she just couldn't let it go, and there was no compromising or maneuvering around. And that was just a giant red flag for me. And I hope that if she ever plays again, that she'll be able to address that. And hopefully as a returnee, she will be able to. But it didn't take long with my motivation to, I was doing everything I could to work out how can I save Brooke. How can I save Brooke and just not be, not lose another returnee right now? And just, it took 36 hours being on the beach to see the opportunity, and then maybe a little bit longer to breadcrumb those people to get them to the water kind of thing, right? And as soon as I kind of saw it all happen, it was so clear. I'm like, I know what I need to do. I now just need some time to make it happen. And then as soon as we all got together, it must have been within the first 2 days of being on the beach.
Oh, wow.
It might have been even that night that everyone, the other tribe were at tribal council there. But that plan was solidified, and because Blanche very quickly just became with Asha, and it was Asha, Blanche, Cameron, and not so much Lottie, but they were it became a 3, and then Lottie was there, and then also with me, and it was when we didn't go to tribal council for a week, right? It was a long time, and Asha was we hadn't tested our tribe. Asha was calling so many people for chats and just bouncing around the beach like a ping pong ball, like a pinball, just going to everyone and what are you talking about with so many different people, and then going back to the same people that it's too much. Well, what are you trying to get out here? But just paddling like crazy, but going nowhere for no reason. So it was just so many alarm bells there. But the beauty of it, that the fact that Ash was speaking to so many people, that kind of created this culture of, and Blanche, so Ash and Lottie would be off chatting, and then Cameron and Blanche would then go and have a chat, and we were just left in camp. We had that one chat at night, and then we were just left in camp so many times together. And they talk about how do they operate? How do they get? Ash was so confused in her exit interviews about, I don't know how they were pulling that off, but we were the only ones left in camp because you were talking to your number one ally with the camera. I just left us there, and we were able to just look around, gave each other a nod, and be like, we're still on. I'm like, yep. And it was a tough spot to be in for me to keep it cool for that long, but to just not give anything away. And there were little sniffs, bits and pieces. Cameron, kind of spoke about it at tribal council, and Lottie was Lottie said she couldn't put her finger on it, but we were operating underneath their noses and pulled it off seamlessly. So it was it was really cool, just really cool, survivor play, and a poetic blindside there.
Well, while you were making all these machinations happen, something that probably complicated matters would be what is happening on the other side. Let's get into the rich of it all here, Simon.
Yeah.
because this is a relationship that will seemingly be important for this, at least the idea of it, right? It is,
Yeah.
okay, you keep talking to Mark about keep Rich here. There's people saying we need to keep Rich here because I want to work with Simon. So talk to me about the bond you guys formed on Bounty 1.0. And as much as you were talking about how you did not want to throw the challenges in those first couple of instances, what was your reaction when he is telling you, I'm in danger, please throw the challenge?
Sorry, bro, you gotta sort it out for yourself, man. No, it was like Rich was very much so like I like he wasn't my number one on paper, but he was a very important person for me, and we had a very special connection that I just knew how valuable he was to my game. But I knew that, but the good thing with Rich is like he didn't require as much energy. Like I didn't have to invest in him as much as I did other people to know that he was always there for me. Like he was just he's such a great guy and has such a great passion for this game of Survivor. It just resonated through him, and we just connected and bonded so tightly. So it was amazing. I had some great time with him, and I could see how important he was for my game. When we got split up, it was heartbreaking to see him, absolutely swap screwed and in a really tough spot with Lyndall over there. But it raised some new opportunities for me. And the first was like I had opportunities to chat to Mark, and it was a bit of a test mark at the same time to be like, hey, can you save Rich? And Mark was like, can you save my girl Brooke? Like, we saw Mark's confessionals, like, just how his infatuation with Brooke. So it became a pretty easy one because I already wanted to do that. But at the same time was like, how willing is Mark to look after my guy? How can I actually test Mark in this game and see that, is he actually willing to follow through with looking after Rich? And Rich was like important, but not imperative to, like, I wasn't placing all my eggs in his basket on the other side. It's like,
Gotcha.
to cherish my own relationships what I can, but as an extra lever I can pull, like, yeah, let's see how that kind of goes there. And I had these opportunities like kind of line up where it's like I had this, with Mark being like, look after Rich. And then in the bluffing challenge, it's like, why? It's so stupid to, in my opinion, to do a Brooke and to like for a piece of pie. And so I'm like, I'm not going to play that like 100%. Be like, I can be a man of my word. I can show that I'm a trustworthy player in front of everyone and display that to not raise any more question marks as a 3-time returning player, and show that I'm loyal to Rich as well. And Mark wasn't, you could see like, back in the edit that he wasn't hell bent on that. And we even spoke about like, hey, I can deal with the fallout there. But that would have been a really good like litmus test to see how much Mark was willing to like, I don't know, listen to, or take that on board. And he definitely sold it back to me. They're like, hey, when it counted, after merge, being like, hey, I looked after you guy Rich, like, let's go. So kind of caught me off guard a little bit there. But it was good. Was I willing to throw a challenge for him, like to do it? Like, no, because like at the end of the day, it's like it's too important for me. Like, you're not going to put your own game before someone else is there. I had in one of the challenges, I had that coral, the fake idol that I ended up using. I had it in my budgie smugglers during one of the challenges and just didn't get a chance to hand it over to Rich. And all I would have needed to say was like, you know what to do with this. And he's got a great survivor mind to be able to go off and do his thing. It was very much sort of like a really, really valuable relationship to me. And I knew that looking after that was good for my public image, like within the contestants, and good for, my game if he happens to go through. But yeah, it wasn't meant to be the case.
All right, Simon, let's get into one of the first opportunities where you get your hand, for lack of a better term, caught in the cookie jar here. Let's talk about this fire challenge, because you were sitting here at Tribal Council. Now, you were sort of making plans on plans, right? Because you didn't know what the twist would entail with both tribes going.
Yep.
And then you're told, okay, the twist is one person from each tribe. It's going to make fire. It's the same twist from Australia versus the world. So you said, again, you would never necessarily throw a challenge here. You once sort of had your cake and eat it too. But talk to me about what was going through your head here. I mean, you have people literally on both shoulders from different sides whispering to you to throw this so that they can vote the other person out. Were you debating at one point even like not stepping up for the fire making challenge just so you could sort of wash your hands of the situation?
No, not at all. I was always going to do it if I had the support of my tribe. But like as a returning player, like you just like I've seen and watched enough of this show and been a part of it to know that like when these twists kind of come up, like when there's a twist on a twist, like just things it's just alarm bells ring, right? Like you just don't have all the cards in your hands to make that decision. So to have like, I don't know, people just seem so, I mean, they were talking about it, but seemed so okay with like, oh, this is just what it's going to be. And I'm like, no, you guys don't understand. Like, we're not necessarily done here. And sure enough, we had fire. Like, we didn't all vote together. Like there was another twist in there. And I'm like, we have to factor in contingency plans to an extent. You can't just think that like, oh, that's it. And that was kind of frustrating to see the newbies just react like that. Then when it kind of came down to it, and that was getting floated, if someone had stood up and advocated and be like, no way Simon's doing this challenge, like he's like not going to throw it. But that was kind of a good thing for my character to know that like Simon doesn't throw challenges, then that's the perception of it, where in reality, Simon likes avoiding tribal council. Like that's at the crux of it. But like for the right reason, yeah, like why not? But it became very clear to me that once I worked out like how it was all kind of happening and going to go down, I'm like, I'd seen stranger things happen, and I didn't want to give away my necklace before we went to fire, and I knew that I had a feeling. I think I even asked, like, can I give away my necklace? Because like I think Ash was already pressuring me into, trying to give it away, and so I think I asked the question of the producers, and Phoebe just recited the rules to me of being like, you can do whatever with immunity or with the necklace until the votes are, until until David says, okay, it's time to vote. So I'm like, okay, great. Well, I will use, that information and my knowledge of the game to do whatever I need to do. So I wasn't willing to give it away then, or to throw that. But then I have a chance to then influence the game in a way that works for me specifically. And when there's so much going on, I have a tendency. I'm not quick on my feet, Mike. It's a bit of a I'm just not great at it. I'm nowhere near as quick as George, and I'd love to be, but it's just not the way that I'm cut out. So I like to sit back and like take on the information, work out what's going on, decode it all, try process it as quick as I can, and then make a decision. So I was sitting back, taking all this in, and being like, I feel like I will be able to do this challenge, but there's a lot happening right now. And then to be able to do it, I'm like, okay, well, I can save my entire tribe and get away from this. I can hand my necklace to Rich, which is such a big pinch point, and the whole motivation of why Asha is asking me to throw the challenge in the first place. And then we can go, like, we've still got another couple of like tribal council, like we got a couple more votes before merge, unless it's a giant merge vote, and then this whole thing's null and void. Like it's we can throw another one. It doesn't need to be tonight. There is no rush here. And it worked out perfectly. And like I really struggled with fire like that night. Like the conditions were appalling. Like it was windy, it was tough. And you see Lottie go, oh yeah, he's throwing it. And I'm like, I'm actually trying my hardest, but thank you for it. Kind of helped with the perception being like, oh, of course, like, Simon looks like he's throwing it, but Mark was taking too long, and then he went ahead and did it. And then like, yeah, I won, great, we all get safe. And then yeah, I had the moment with Rich to save him. And even again, another show of publicly to show that like I'm trustworthy. I'm doing something for someone else here. And there was no skin off my nose, but it worked well for my game. And yeah, it was just so funny that like my entire tribe were upset that I
Yeah.
had thrown it and saved everyone. Like, only Simon could do that, right? Like,
Well, there was one other person that maybe was upset with something that you did. What was your reaction when you stand up and Faith, who you had only recently become acquainted with, is trying to stop you in the moment from giving the necklace to Rich?
man, that was crazy. I was like, I'm so infatuated with the character of Faith and the way that she played. I loved watching her on TV from the other side of, because when we watch, you don't really know the other tribe
Right,
so
you only
much.
know
So like,
basically intel from Matt chat.
no, but even though, so I'm probably talking about like actually watching it back, and I'm like,
Mm.
on this side, like I just love her character who's so like confident and just boisterous and like just like oozing confidence and playing the game in a way that I never could. I think that's why I like watching those characters. But then in the moment, being like, what the fuck are you doing? And why are you so like? Why are you? Is this really the way that you're playing this game? Like, you just like, there is no mutual benefit to me from you persuading me this way. I I, I truly believe the information that's come to light after the fact that's just Faith's way of communicating. She's like, you don't actually need to give Rich the necklace. He is okay to not. And so there actually was truth to that. And I don't think that, he was going home. That actually would have been Tez anyway. But such a wild like interaction to be at the forefront of and to be on the receiving end, being like, holy crap, like, are you talking to me in a game that we vote people off and have like a jury vote for a winner? This is the way that you're choosing to communicate, and it's just Faith. And I absolutely love that. But like, deep down, I was like, well, I don't trust her for one bit. But that was her utmost sincere moment, trying to genuinely convince me that I am okay, as opposed to trying to pull the wool over my eyes. Go figure.
Yeah, so you talk about this again, the pure irony of saving your entire tribe, but perhaps angering them all in the process because of the various things they want to do, and which they'll get to do, for lack of a better term, in the next episode. I mean, did you feel like this changed the way people were looking at you at all? Did you feel like you were in any more danger because of what you were doing with that fire making?
Slightly, yes, but the thing that helped me here was that Asha had the blinkers on and just wanted Brooke
Right.
gone so bad. Like, we'd won
She's like, we'll deal with Simon
4.
later. Brooke is the primary focus right now.
Exactly. Like, it was so it made it so easy. Like, her obsession with Brooke was just a nice amount of coverage and shade for me. So like, I kind of, the fallout from that wasn't as bad as what I expected. And then, like, God, if there's anyone who can like go back and grovel and work their butt off after tribal council, like, it's me. Like, I'm not the best at it, but I've had to do it enough times that I'm and always willing to keep trying, so I'm never afraid of dealing with fallouts and repercussions.
So as we get into the Asha vote, again, this is something that had been a while in the making, as much as you had tried to sort of delay the inevitable with not throwing these challenges. But in the lead up to it, was there any thought to trying to give Lottie a heads up? How much, when actually push came to shove, were you weighing like, oh, this could really piss off my number one ally?
Oh, it was the single biggest consideration for me in the game. Um, it was like such a hard decision, but a no-brainer at the same time. I think it's just experience that it came down to it. It's like, you know what, when you have these opportunities to pivot and you see a new path forward, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And like, and the not eating it too. Like, I had a lot of that in the first half of the game, but that was a point where it's like I kind of had to pick a side here. And like, I don't know whether Lottie would have, been okay with the news. Like, she said she like potentially could have been. But like, you just don't know how people are feeling at that point in time. And like, how many times have we seen, the big mouth, like blabbermouth, like, it blow up in their face, or that person then is the one who ends up going home because someone's already thrown their name out and stuff. And I knew that like they were just so close, and they had such a great relationship, and they got along like a house on fire. So it was like, whilst I really felt like Lottie was my number one, that my game was just more important there. And like, it's just that wisdom that you have as a returnee, to being like, if you're doing this, you do it properly, and you have to deal with it. And it did become a bit of a, Lottie did become a bit of like a loose end, like a bit of the monkey on my back, like, later on. And it's a tough decision to go, do you actually have to deal with this now? And I was just kind of lucky that there was like another distraction of Jackson, that Lottie wanted Jackson gone because she was disgruntled by the way that Jackson was acting and treating a couple of people, for a couple of like just minor in camp interactions, like just off the cuff comments and stuff that weren't like mean or anything, but just like kind of caught a couple of people off guard or just sat the wrong way with people. That was just enough, sucking up enough attention that was kind of deal with Jackson and then me. So another instance of that. So I kind of got lucky there.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, did the fallout from Lottie, the actual reactions, the comment of "he's dead to me," did that match up to what you anticipated her reaction would be? What was the damage control like with Lottie over the next few days?
Yeah, she was pretty she's pretty straightforward. Like she'd call a spade a fucking shovel, which is always pretty funny. So she called me a dog. Like she knew, like I knew she was pissed. And it was definitely sitting in the back of my mind because we had that conversation with Jackson. I'm like, what about the fallout with Lottie from she's still part of our original bounty, and he's like, I don't care. And I'm like, ugh, this is all on me. Like this is this is for me to deal with. So it was a tough one, but I thank God for Jackson for actually just kind of pissing off a couple of people. That was just he was the next one in front of me. So it was just kind of nice to have a bit of coverage there when you're in those situations. And that's the kind of stuff you can't plan. There's going to be fallout, there's repercussions. You don't know how disgruntled people are going to be. But Lottie was, she was appreciative of the game. She understood it was a game and not taking things like she was going to take it personally. Like, yeah, you dogged me, but you're not. It didn't take away from the shine for the overall mission for what she was trying to achieve. And I was still valuable to her. And sometimes you're better off still having someone who you've kind of worked with and who's been there for you and with you, and had like a different motivation there as opposed to, I don't know. There's so many scenarios, right? So I think I just got lucky having another distraction and having someone a bigger target than me, and as someone who was investing in a shield strategy, it was just nice to catch a break.
Well, I'll throw another scenario in front of you. I'll again ask, let's say that you did. Now, the next couple tribal councils are weird, but let's say it's like a regular tribal council after this Asha vote. You're going back to tribal. You do promise Lottie as a bit of a make good here. Okay, next time, I promise, Laws and I will flip. We will take out Jackson.
Yeah.
What do you think the vote would have been? Would you actually have done that, or would Beauty and the Beast have taken out Blanche or her or Cameron?
I'm still probably still on the fence about this one, and kind of glad I never had to cross that bridge and probably haven't put too much thought into it. I try not to dwell too much on sliding doors, Mike, but I think that if I could have got away with keeping Brooke in a way that, keeping Brooke and Lottie, that would have kind of been enough. But I think that it probably would have had to be Jack. It would have been ideal, but I feel like on paper there would have been benefit to me taking out Jackson. He didn't have a lot of ties there. If Brooke of course would have been okay with it. But if I had been able to kind of keep Brooke and Ban on one side, but then build some trust back with my OGs, like with Ash. That's where Ash was gone with Cameron, Lottie, and then Blanche, by actually following through with something that I'd say I do to rebuild trust. I think that compromising on Jackson, giving the wider relationships that he had in the game, really only being with kind of Ben and me, would have been beneficial for me there. But ultimately, I am glad that I didn't have to make that decision at that point in time. And once it got to merge, it became clearer that it was worth tying up the loose end with Lottie.
So, as much as you were adamantly about not throwing challenges, you do get a very interesting opportunity served up to you
Yeah.
right before the merge here, where
Yeah.
all this Redemption Beach shenanigans are going down, and you get told, hey, the tribe that loses this next challenge will go to Tribal Council, but you won't be alone. You'll be joined by Keely and Sally, who don't have a vote. And we see some legitimate discussion happening amongst your entire tribe, seemingly, about hey, let's throw this challenge, and then Keely's someone we could easily pick off. So, how close were you to actually doing that and taking out Keely before the merge happened?
Mike, probably the closest I've ever been to throwing a challenge. Like, I don't
Wow.
think that there's ever, um, yeah, there's just never really been a better situation than that one to like that makes more sense for me to then actually consider like throwing a challenge and go to tribal council when you have an offering of a sitting duck or a pig with the apple in its mouth at at your feet at the dinner table to actually take a huge chunk out of. And it was Keely was one hell of a tasty target at that point in time, given that the information that we had was that Mark's running the tribe, and it's very, very clear of the size and the impact of across the entire game that Mark was having. He was sucking so much oxygen out of the game from both sides. A giant storm over the island of Samoa, and Mark had 3 girls with him: Sally, Keely, Faith. But we didn't know what that pecking order looked like or what that was, but we had information that Keely specifically wanted to take out Mark, like wanted to turn on Mark, or that there was motivation to take out Mark at some stage, which was kind of crazy for even me to kind of have that information there. But like that, I just felt like that was well known across the tribe. So then to have an opportunity to like potentially depower Mark a little bit was a huge consideration for me. And yeah, and I was in that position where I could have dropped the coconuts to just go ahead and I think have that moment. I think that's where that was. And I had an opportunity to chat to Mark about it as well. And I think the other our tribe realized as well at that time that's like, hang on, Simon's the one in the position of throwing the challenge right now.
Right.
We didn't really we put him up for the hero position, and I was like kind of nominated for that. Everyone just kind of looked at me and went, "Oh yeah, Simon will do it." But they didn't
Holding
really think
something up, it goes to you.
Yeah, but didn't really think about like, oh, hang on, there were some of us who actually might want to lose this one, and it probably won't be Simon. And then next minute, Ben, Blanche, and Brooke like charge out of the water and like going up 1,000,000 miles an hour to like win this, and the other tribe are also throwing, and it's just like, why are the other tribe throwing? Like, what's like, are they trying to save Keely, or what's going on here? And then it was very tempting, and I'm not sure if I regret not doing it, but it's probably the closest I would have been to be like, I probably it's probably something that I wish I had have done at the time to throw that, but Keely ended up being one of my best assets out there. So
I was going to say, you literally
know what I mean?
work alongside her in the very next vote.
Yeah, so it's like it's kind of crazy that that at that point in time on paper, it would have been the best thing for me to do to knock Keely off her perch, but I wanted to kind of keep some face with Mark as I knew how much oxygen he was kind of taking out. I wanted to at least keep him happy as I invested in my shield strategy. And yeah, and I'm like, let them sort their shit out on the other tribe. Like they can go off and do what they need to do. And once we get to merge, we'll deal with the fallout from there. And oh my goodness, wasn't that an interesting couple of votes after that, seeing the fallout and what Tez and Faith going home after that. So yeah, it was it was Faith.
It was Faith. Yeah, it was immediately the Faith vote. So then let's talk about once you all meet up on the beach here, because you've got your fingers in a lot of different pies here, right? You obviously have Beauty and the Beast. You and Mark and Brooke have this boomerangs thing coming together. You have this, albeit right now, tepid kind of relationship with Lottie. Yeah, so talk to me a bit about, at the time the individual game began, who were you gravitating towards the most? Which grouping were you feeling closest with, and how much were your priorities shifting?
Oh, Mike, it was absolutely amazing going into merge in a position of power, position of influence, and having great relationships across the board. Like I definitely, severed a couple like here and there, but it was just in the games of Survivor, which I had gotten involved in like the whole way through. Like you unless you do nothing, you don't get to that point and not have a couple of disgruntled people to an extent, right? So
Mhm.
I had played the perfect first half of the game, in my opinion. Like I was just so freaking proud that everything that I had set out to do, I had executed so well. I articulated it well. The execution was great. It wasn't perfect by any means, but it was just very good, even by my sense. And I'm like, wow, I've achieved so much here. Coming into it, it was let's check in with Mark and Brooke and see where we're at here. And this whole thing, like the whole thing was kind of moving because merge was very much so on a lot of people's minds, as it always is. The people around me with influence that had the biggest influence on my decisions on where I went was Loz, as someone who had, I'd been put so much energy into the entire game, like way more energy than she deserved. She got just how, but I was willing to, outwork and put that energy into it because it was, hopefully going to keep paying dividends. But it was a huge resource suck for me. Loz, with her initial idol swap with Lyndall and Brooke, had a lot of motivation to go back and wanted to team up with Mark. Mark was one of the people she had a connection with from the other tribe when she went over and spent that night there.
Right.
So there was always like, I would like to if we get to merge, I'd like to team up with Mark. I'm like, okay, that's great. Rich and Mark had a good relationship, seemingly. But Rich wasn't aware of how Mark felt, and I only know this now retrospectively. But that was kind of good. So I'm like, okay, I've saved Brooke. I'm close with Brooke. Mark, Loz, Rich, and then Keely's, in that, and Keely and I just kicked it off like a house on fire. It was so great. But very early on, I think, I had a conversation with Mark and Brooke about, where do we go here, or, the returnees and stuff like that. And then, I said that, I believe that from what Loz has been telling me for so long that, she's keen to get around this. And Rich was also very keen on it, on the idea as well. So we had this conversation at night. What was it? I don't think it was the first night of merge. It might have been I think we had after the merge feast. God, maybe it was the first night. Must have been the first. Yeah, it must have been the first night of merge that we had Mark, Keely, Brooke, myself, and Rich sat down at like 2 a.m. for an hour, a couple of hours underneath the tribe flag, and essentially like pulled out like a play-by-play on how we want to actually like run this and pull this all together. And I knew that I had Loz there because Loz and Rich were so close, and I was so close with Loz, and Loz had everything that she kind of, I believe that she wanted, like in that kind of point in time. And so did Rich. Like we were talking about, well, we can run this with a big majority and pick off from the outside. And it made so much sense. So Rich had kind of sworn his devotion to, to Mark and myself. And then after, and I saw everything. I'm like, hey, I can end up in a majority here. And then I can Lottie doesn't become as valuable to me at this point in time. The other piece of information that was critical was that Lottie wanted Mark on. Lottie didn't want to be working with Mark. Like there was so much conflict there between Ash, Lottie, Keely, Faith, and then Mark, essentially. And
right, I heard at that fire making tribal council, there was a lot of back and forth between those two groups.
Oh yeah, and especially those girls. There was a lot of just a lot of pent up tension. And we're actually really robbed of seeing Lottie, Ash versus like Keely, Faith clashing come merge. So I apologize to the viewers because that would have been amazing. But yeah, Lottie was like just very clear on like, hey, I don't want to work with Mark. I don't negotiate with terrorists. I don't agree with the game he's playing. I don't want that. So as someone who was willing to invest in a shield strategy with Mark, then it kind of cemented the fact that like that's not quite right for me. I didn't expect to connect with Keely and trust Keely in a way so quickly that we just kind of got on and saw eye to eye. And that was kind of like when I kind of realized, and you should, because there was a lot of buttering up, which was, Keely was very good at it and stuff, but I could see through it, but it's still like, it was still a fun, like almost she kind of Parvati vibes, like flirtatious way of kind of, you going across and stroking someone's ego and stuff. So it was fun. And then, but realize that, hang on, there's some like serious, like mutual benefit here right now. And she didn't know where I kind of sat with Lottie. So I knew I had to kind of like, when it became apparent to me, for me to actually bring that up, and like Keely was quite surprised that like, hang on, isn't Lottie your number one? But I'm like, yeah, but it's a big loose end for me. And we came into merge there, and Mark was, God, so bloody hell-bent coming into merge. He's like, Sally has to go. Like, it's got to be Sally. And I'm like, okay, like, you could do your thing. And then after speaking to Keely, he was like, maybe like, is Sally good for your game? And Keely's like, well, I don't want her gone. And I'm like, well, she doesn't do anything for me, but she's not a deterrent. So like, I'd rather keep Sally around now. And then I'm like, yeah, well, I'm happy to tie up the loose end with Lottie. And yeah, it was kind of surprising. And then we fed that back to Mark, and he was, God, we watched him just run around the beach and kind of confirm the plans, and then was able to like triangulate the information that like that was actually the name and the news that he was passing on. And yeah, Mike just kind of, we were able to set him up, and he went and did the work for us, and then was also seen to be like running that vote, which was amazing. So he was also copping a lot of heat there. Yeah, so that's how it kind of came together. And after that first vote, I went like, holy shit, like this is really going my way. Like I've ended up here in a majority. Like we've got, with Lottie's gone first, I've got the biggest kind of deterrent there, like off my, or biggest, not a red flag, but an amber flag for me. Like I've kind of taken care of that, and now I kind of have some free breathing room here. Ended up in majority, and then it kind of leads into the next vote where Loz and, well, I'm sure we're about to speak about it. Do you want to ask your question? And I can probably
let's get into it, because you're setting this up beautifully, Simon. You're a natural narrator, because you're like, everything was going my way finally for the first time in Survivor history, and this is when things start going, for lack of a better term, kaput. And it seems like, from our perspective, it was okay. It seems like there's this new group of basically head office and Beauty and the Beast working together. Did you have a sense early on that things would immediately turn so anti-returnee as they did? Did you feel that tension existing even in the Lottie vote?
Oh, the tension was there the entire time. Like there was no, and I feel like Mark has a lot to answer for here as well, and just the way that he found himself playing the size of the game that he did. Like it was huge. And even just the conversation of Brooke being such a big target for Asha and Co was just Mark needs to go, Brooke needs to go. I felt that it was only a matter of time until it really came to a head. But I thought we were in a position where we'd done so well to negate that, and that's why I could really see that. And the kind of final straw was like I kind of pitched Lottie as the leader of the resistance, because she was the had the most influence over those kind of newbies to like bring them all together. Like she can rally a troop. Like she's very good like that. So it made sense to get rid of her to kind of give myself some breathing room. But now I had Rich and Loz back together and with us, was like, this is fantastic. But then after Mark's run this vote, and then there's Ben starts going, oh, I'm not sure if this is really like going my way. That then the opportunity for Loz and Rich to potentially flip back the other way. Like when that news came about, I was so confused, Mike. The fact that we had a vote under our belt, and everything that Loz had told me about what her intentions were and how much work I'd put into her to get her back to Mark and to have this, it was just so out of the blue that she kind of came back to me and turned around and said, like, I'm, I think we vote Mark. I'm like, what has changed for you? And then she had this new fire, she had an independent thought for the first time, which was like, as someone who'd been leading that horse to water, like, was hang on, you're not meant to, what are you doing? Like, this is not how this goes. Like, I've helped you like so much, and now like your first independent thought is like just not gonna help me. It was looked after you for so long. It was like, damn, what's happening here right now? And look, without going into the detail, Loss was going through a bit of a tough time at that point in time. And she just, this little breeze came through of potentially Mark, and then all of a sudden she just went with the breeze, and that was like kind of really disappointing. Rich, I didn't expect. Rich, after sitting down with us that night for a couple of hours, like laying out how everything was going to go together and his allegiance to us and me, and he was between Simon and Rich could bring Loz into to this, and we've already had the vote under our belt. But then for Rich to turn around and be like, "No, we're going Mark," I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, how does that turn for you?" It's like, "We've got the numbers." I'm like, "But you and Loz are the swing. Like, you've got the power to decide, but we're sitting here with this." And so that was really like, I obviously got that information where Rich and Loz both came up to me and told me this, and I'm going, hang on, like, how, like, what's changed for you to just to have like to make that like snap decision? And it just felt so out of the blue, and it was just so disheartened because like everything I'd worked so hard for in the first half of this game came unraveled at this point in time. As they swung away from me, I probably might throw it over to you for the next question to see where you want to go to from here.
Well, I'm curious because they're claiming that they're just going with the breeze. Were you ever debating going with the breeze? Before we even get into the shenanigans of this tribal council, when Rich tells you it's going to be Mark, were you giving any consideration to like, let me just go with, the thing I've got going on with Ben and Jackson and Rich and Laws and turn on Mark here?
Yeah, 100%. It was definitely a huge consideration for me. Like, I was definitely thinking about it, and in my own head, I was flip-flopping at that tribal council, being like, holy shit, like, I'm not sure if this, like, I'd love to have Mark as a shield just because the newbies want him gone so badly right now. But as soon as he's gone, I know that, my name very quickly moves up the list, which became so evidently true. It wasn't even funny. But like, I was, before I found out about his idol, like, I know I had that fake coral idol, which I even slipped in just as I just had it up my sleeve. Never knew. I thought I was going to give it to Rich, but I just had it there, like, just in case. And I'm like, just as a way to, just as an option to be like, you never know what can happen and what tools you have up your sleeve. But like, if Mark had been able to do something with that to throw some people off and maybe, cause a bit of confusion, like, or even just attract a bit of attention, like, not a bad thing. But then when he actually showed me the real idol, well, I was like, well, at this point in time, like, Rich is gone from me here. Like, I can only go with him, but now I know that Mark has an idol, so Mark's not going home. And I feel like my clarity of the bigger picture was swayed with that information at that point in time, when it became very much a survival, I can make it through here. And like, I know that Mark won't be going home regardless with this. Now he knows. And I'm like, I said to Mark and Brooke, I'm like, hey, I think this ship's sailing. Like, Rich and Loz are definitely gone, and I had a final pitch with Rich, and I said, like, mate, like, I'm calling in all my receipts, everything that I've done for you, giving you the lollies, advocating for you at Tribe Swap, giving you the necklace, everything that I have done for you, I'm calling it all back. Like, I am laying it all out here. I need you. And he turned around to my face and said, I can't do it. And that was just heartbreaking, but like I knew that he had, you got to play your own game. That's fine. I didn't think it was going to be the right decision, but Richard also very clearly said to me that like, we might not always vote together, but I will always be there for you. And so that I had a little bit of reassurance in that. It was just tough when I wasn't, like, when I needed him the most, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it, the kind of fallout then happens here, and all like, Mark's got about 1,000 things going on as he's trying to like strong arm Ben. I've thrown him a fake idol. He's got a real idol, and then he's trying to like got everything going on, and then he's working out that Rich isn't there with him and stuff like that. I then just made the decision of being like, you know what, like this is where I finally, after walking the tightrope for 30-something day or 30 days, 20, maybe 20, early 28, 29 days or something, I finally make my bed. Like this is where it comes to I have to choose a camp here. And thinking that, you know what, Rich, I can patch things up with Rich. I can patch things up with Loz, or I can go from here. And then when Mark turns around to us as Keely, Simon, Brooke, Mark turns around and goes, I'm like, why don't we just stick with the plan and send Ben home? And he's like, nah, it's got to be Rich. And I'm like, okay, like that's like, can we do a compromise? Can we do Loz? Loz has also flipped away from us here,
right,
after saying she's going to be with us. He's like, nah, it's got to be Rich. And I'm like, well, this isn't good for my game. Mark actually called Rich a C-bomb at that, like to us on the down low. And I was like, holy crap. Mark's just called someone a C-bomb on national TV, and it obviously doesn't go to air, but like, he's not fucking around right now.
Yeah.
Right? There is no negotiation. There is no, like, he is seeing red. He is highly emotional at this point in time. And I'm going, holy crap. Like, I no way I want Rich here right now, but like, this is what's happening. Like, this is how I am going to wake up tomorrow. And sure enough, like after that, like, Mark turns around, burns me with the coral, like with the fake idol, in a way that was like, man, if I'm the one who's stuck by you in all this, I really didn't think that you needed to do that right now to take me down a peg. And then just to vote Rich out of spite, where Rich probably, like, Rich could have been could have cut, like, if we had taken like out Ben, like it could, like Rich could have come back into the fold. He could have gone either way. He was definitely like a swing, but like, one of the other things Mark said was like, we don't need an ally, right, Rich, when you ask for him, you need him in the most dire situation. Like, he's a piss weak ally. Like, we vote him out now. I was like, no, like, I don't want that. And sure enough, we did. And there was so much going on in the moment. Like, I probably didn't see the big picture for what that could have been. And I probably could have like just voted Mark, like, with in like as an alternative, to know that I could have been there, know that he wasn't going home that night, and kind of kept a foot in both camps to an extent, knowing that he'd kind of shown us that. But like, it was just it all kind of came to a head there, and there was a lot going on. It was very, very heated, very heated.
So then what was the damage control like with Ben and Jackson specifically? Which is weird, right? Because like, you didn't necessarily vote against Ben, but this is going to become a recurring storyline, is that you are trying to, maintain that we still have a good relationship, but that you keep voting separately from them. So what was the fallout like with them in the aftermath of that?
Yeah. Big. Like, they weren't happy. It's like, hang on, you said you were gonna, like, I actually don't. Well, yeah, I did say I was gonna. I'm like, I don't think I ever like confirmed, but it was so clear that, like, Ben obviously told me, like, hey, the plan's Mark. Like, we're going Mark. Mm-hmm. Like, it's happening. I'm like, oh shit, okay. Like, yeah. And I remember just having to accept it at the time, being like, okay, I can agree to this plan right now, and I can deal with the consequences. And when I came to deal with the consequences, they weren't happy. They're like, why would you do this? And then, like, the fact that one of them wasn't idled out was, oh God, it's like, and then Rich goes home was like the worst case scenario for me. But my only saving grace here was the fact that Mark was still in the game. And everyone hated Mark. Like, there was just so much distaste towards him from now the newbies that he'd sucked up so much oxygen from the game and was really kind of controlling the votes. And now controlling the votes from a majority, like when everyone's trying to send him home, like it was a very clear message and he's still muddling with things. Like it was huge. So I was very glad that I had him there to just be lucky to have people with blinkers on looking that way and not at me, but knowing that was coming, right? Now it was apparent that I'm now on the bottom with the returning alliance with the number one target who's like a sitting duck without an idol. Like it's not a good sign. So I've got some work to do here and I'm going to have to grovel. So yeah, I definitely tried to, own it and be like, look, yeah, I had intention to, but then I found out about the idol and, it is what it is. But the reality of it is you vote one way, you've got to kind of deal with it and own that. And I feel like there was a lot of as much as Jackson and Bam were kind of laughing at me, I don't trust a word he says, but still,
the one-armed man in the fan in the newspaper factory, I think it was.
Yeah, I still knew that was potentially going to be an option. So and we still got along well. There was, so I just knew that I could never shut that. I'm never going to be one to shut the door, but there's always the most inviting one to keep trying to go back to, which you obviously saw that I kept doing.
Did you get the sense, you mentioned this before, that people were so adamantly against you in that round that we see even Mark is Brooke, Keeley, they're all saying, yeah, we need to turn on Simon eventually. Were you surprised at all? And did you even discover in the moment before everything turned that you were public enemy number one for a brief portion of time in that episode?
I think Mark had, as a way to manage the our minority alliance, had said that, oh yeah, Simon, I'm going to pitch you and you pitch me and we'll try to, I don't know, create some, bit of a split there between us to, I don't know, to see if we can get in with Caleb to blah, blah, blah. So that was the narrative. But even after speaking to Ben and Jackson, I knew that Mark was throwing my name out there, but it's actually kind of weird that I was never really worried about it. It wasn't because of what Mark had done and the impact he had on the game. He was still a bigger target there. So I actually didn't feel compromised or worried at that point in time as well. Even though I knew he was running around yelling out my name and Ben and Jackson were agreeing to it. I think that was the same way that you just agreed to a plan. And I think they later confirmed that as well in another conversation that, if that's included where I then go and speak to Ben and Jackson after Mark goes and speaks to Ben and Jackson, it kind of sucks the life out of the episode and that storyline or the anticipation building into Tribal Council, but it became very clear and apparent about where that was sitting for me there.
All right, so let's get into what ends up being your final week of episodes in the game here. And this is, in a post-Mark world. And like you say, part of trying to recover your game involved going to some of these Bounty 1.0, Baron 2.0 players who you had burned a couple times. I want to focus in on a couple of these relationships. Let's go back to the laws topic here, because it's interesting for you to illuminate, the fact that the two of you were tight, because here we get, this kind of tense conversation where she says, well, I have options. You're like, well, you might not have many options. This is the infamous stuff you, Simon confessional. So what was your dynamic like at this point? Because it does seem like, from our perspective, whatever goodwill and, strong dynamics you had up to that point had kind of fizzled out by now.
Yeah. I think Loz was just very disheartened the fact that I'd always try to look out for her, but I'd never done any, I'd never followed her. If she wanted, when she wanted Jackson gone, I never rallied people to help out with that plan. And I always put it back to her being like I get that, Loz, but that you want Jackson gone. But if you want that, you've got to put in some work yourself. You have to go out and speak to people and like, who have you spoken to get this plan? It's like, oh, well, I'm thinking about going to, and I'm like, you haven't done it. Like you can't just operate through me. And I think we see that moment where she actually speaks to Ben and saying, oh, I've operated a lot through Simon, but now I'm coming to, actually speak to you for the first time myself, kind of thing. Like there are elements of that kind of get shown. So like it was, and for her, like it's kind of, she's in a spot of frustration. And then from my point of view, like now, we were so close and have worked so closely together, and then she has changed away from the plan that we were working towards together, but she's holding me quite responsible for then, voting out Rich, which I get, obviously did that, but she's really disappointed that I've then voted out her other number one in the game of Richard. And it just wasn't fair to like be copying that much kind of resentment and frustration when like I just had to, the amount of work that I put into Loz, and she was just not reciprocating the social work that I was putting in. So at that point in time, she's like, oh, Simon, like I will, I'd love to, like, I still want to work with you. I still, but like, it just like not just now. I need to speak to some other people first. I haven't spoken to anyone. Was actually one of the exact thing she says. Like, I haven't spoken to anyone. I'll speak to them and come back to them. I'm like, well, go and do that, because right now in this scramble, you're wasting my time. Like, I'm on the bottom here trying to come up with an option, and if you're just saying that like you might go speak to someone and then come back and see where everyone's sitting, and not doing that, you're not helping me right now, and it's not adding value to me. And I'm at the point now where I need to stop investing and putting energy into this relationship, because it is like the resource is becoming too draining on the time that I have out here and for what I have. So I'm like happy to, just sit that on the bookshelf, and I need to like focus elsewhere, and which is tough, because like, I had put so much effort into it, and it did pay, it never really fully paid the dividend that I wanted it to, but it was helpful, I guess. So I don't regret putting the energy into Loz, but it was, I never fully got the payout there.
What about Cameron? Because we see him say multiple times, Simon keeps breaking my trust. You were at least partially responsible for, his tightest two allies going here. What was your relationship like?
Yeah, my relationship with Cameron was really good on a surface level. Like I always put a lot of time into making sure that he felt heard. I always tried to justify, I gave him a lot of context into my thinking as to why I was doing the things that I was doing, and tried to bring him along for like the understanding of why it was. And he was like quite receptive to those big long apology chats, but trying to like at the same time like installing hope and faith into like our relationship, and being like, hey, we can do this. Like I know I've like burnt you multiple times, but I still invest in us, and like I'm still here looking out for you. And I never gave up hope on him. Like I always wanted him to just not to cruise along and then disappear. I didn't want him to just fade to black, because it's heartbreaking to see as everyone's out there for the same amount of time, giving the same amount of confessionals. But then if you're not doing anything and playing the game in a way that you're changing the game, you don't get that benefit on the other end, on the TV side of things. And that kind of perception is really hard to, or that kind of like context is really hard to communicate to someone in the moment. And Cameron also had some pretty, he was just so, like he had a bit of like, I don't think it was necessarily overhang from Ash, but a similar kind of like blinkers on, it needs to happen this way kind of thing. And like, he just always, I think he wrote down in his journal before playing that like I want to vote out Simon. Like,
yeah, you said like they had like a burn book right before the season.
yeah, and it's just like in a game with the gravit, like it didn't have I don't think like he had the context over the gravitas of what he was playing, and for $500,000 as well, like what you actually need to do to get there. So it was always a kind of option for me, but it was always kind of closed off for him. And it was really hard to see like the amount of times that like he got diddled, like, pulled his pants down like so many times and and made him look like a fool. But I think I said to him, like, there's like fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, fool me 3 times, fool me 4 times, like maybe you should actually wake up and like pay attention to that. Maybe there are some better options there. So it was definitely jaded, and like as it went on, it was kind of getting further and further away from that. And at this point, they kind of like became this. Now these returnees are now in a minority, and we are frustrating the absolute hell out of these newbies. Like they're splitting, they can't get it right. They're not splitting, and they can't get it right. Like how are we losing numbers from our own side in a majority, and just that kind of banding together of the underdogs who were never in an underdog position were it was quite just solidifying and just hard to kind of crack. We were able to chip away at it from Club Kaput, but not in a way that was ever to seize enough control.
So you go to this reward, and under the breaking of bread meatball feast, you make this offer that you will pull 2 rocks if 2 people flip at this moment. When did you come up with this plan, and did you expect anyone to take the deal, albeit days later at that point?
Yeah, no, Mike, so I actually pitched that. Look, you just have to make the most of any moment and opportunity like in this game. And the thing that I kind of noticed that like these newbie crew needed time to process and think about things. So, and like, I kind of learned and had a lot of time with Loz, where I was trying to give her 48 hours notice on where things were going, and just trying to make sure that like they had time to think about, like they weren't just acting on a whim. Like there were times when Sally just couldn't just come up like and just like jump onto a plan at that time. She like, even though when things were all up in the air, she didn't really know it was safe to do nothing. Like it was safe to just like withhold, as opposed to like step out into the spotlight for so many of them. And I knew I needed time for people to think about this. So before that reward challenge, as David's introducing it, I took a moment. I'm like, I think he asked me a question, and I just completely went off and said, like, I pitched to the entire group in front of Dave, in front of production and everyone, but everyone was there, a public pitch to be like, we're coming into a tight spot. If we go to rocks, if anyone flips over to our tribe at a from a 6-4 to a 5-5, I will pull your rock if we get there. So
okay,
I wanted to make
this was made to everyone in the game, not just the people on the reward.
Correct. Absolutely everyone. So I think that was like one of the first of the Simon speeches that people were, angry. But hey, I'm on the bottom. I've got nothing to lose. Like I'm going to do whatever I can. And, people need time to think about this and to go, what does this actually, what does this mean? Like, what does it mean for me? What are the implications? Like, can I do something? And, I've been speaking a lot about at Tribal Council about differentiation, because it was so clear that you could really throw a blanket over these newbies, these passengers, that no one's really doing too much. So how can I get them thinking like, yeah, it's obviously a risky move and it doesn't really make sense on paper, but how can I really incentivize someone to make this move with a level of safety that's not compromising to them, where I take the fall? And like I knew there was a bit of a white lie in there about like in the rules, but like the extent of it, like this game is run by producers, and you never really know what, like there are a couple of rules in there, and one of them is like, I think it's at the very top, like all rules are at the discretion of the producers, and their decision is final. So even like at the very end when, didn't even know if I was going to be, going to rocks, taking a rock or not. Like I still didn't know if, yes, that was the rules that you can't take someone else's rock, but I was never completely out of the clear of like if I actually could and or would have that opportunity if I was going to be enabled to, and just have to eat my words. So it wasn't a hollow threat as such. It was definitely a white lie, but like just throwing absolutely everything at it. And that's why like at that reward challenge, we kind of recap it, but it's brought up in a bit of a weird way because I've already pitched to everyone and I've laid out what the lay of the land is in this kind of 6-4. And, if we can get something going, like, I'd love an opportunity to, to prove that, I'm worth the risk.
All right, well, let's get into this absolutely wild tribal council. Let's set the record straight here, Simon. At what point did you learn about A, Keely's real idol, and B, Keely's fake idol?
I'm sure this will blow up a couple of people's minds here. So, the reward challenge where Keely picked up the fake idol. Sorry, the reward challenge where Keely picked up the real idol from the bottom of the hourglass. I grab Keely as we are walking. It's really funny. We're walking out a challenge. I know we've won. I know we're going to, and we drew rocks for these 6 that were going on this high tea reward.
Mm-hmm.
I was in split minds between at this point in time, not knowing which way I wanted to go with like Brooke and Keely or with Jackson and Ben. And in the split decisions, we're walking out to challenge to go back into marshalling. I'm like, fuck it. There's something about Keely. I think Keely's the right person to be playing this game with.
Mm.
And after everything we've kind of been through, I grab her and I go, pick when we go to choose sticks, choose the one that's closest to my thumb and my index finger. Like, go choose that one. And, when we go there, it's like, oh, how are we going to choose the order? Like, already forecasting potentially what could be the way, how we decide, who goes first, who goes last, what's it going to be. I put the longest stick and the shortest stick in the closest two to my palm, and then the other big ones there, and said, ladies first, you guys pick. And at the time, I didn't know, is the first or the last stick going to be better to have a chance at finding an idol or an advantage or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
I can take myself out of this by being the one to let the people choose sticks, but giving the information to Keely to be like, we need one of the two of us to at least be first or last. Give us a crack there. Sure enough, Keely pulls last. She finds she's wearing my singlet. Like, where she finds when she does that, when she loses her croc climbing into the rice. She finds it. She walks back into camp, and walks back into where we're waiting with the camera and people coming in. She walks back, she's covered in rice, and I think it was the first one to give her a hug, and I come in and brush it off her shoulder and her hand, and she's like, thank you. And I knew pretty. I'm like, yeah. And she told me later on that night, she's like, I found it. I'm like, okay, amazing, great. So I know about her real idol, and which was phenomenal. And she's like, and I've also got a fake idol. She's like, I think she might have even told me. No, it was probably around that. It might have been the day before. It might have been at that time.
Gotcha.
But she told us off, it was probably one of my off-camera slip-ups that we never got around to redoing that one on camera. But she told me about the fake idol that she jimmied off the thing. So I'm like, okay, so she's got this. And so I had all the cards in my hand at the time, which is sometimes better to have that information. And then going into that tribal council, I had immunity, and I kind of knew the lay of the land, being like, I can see where Brooke and Keely are in a tough spot here, and I'm obviously with them, but I also am trying to build some trust with Ben and Jackson here, forecasting where I'm going to be here tomorrow, and hopefully Brooke and Keely aren't, but I need to pipe the fuck down right now, and I need to just take a back seat and let this kind of happen, and let someone else take some attention, because there's going to be some shenanigans, there's going to be some idle play, there's going to be fake idle play, and if I can just sit back and act shocked and do my thing, then it's going to it might just it might just help my case if with Ben and Jackson as well. And sure enough, like, yeah, I was a little bit disappointed how, like, in the edit, just how left out I looked in the point in time without context. But it was amazing, like, masterclass to watch Keely as a, returning player. I love the fact we all just call her that. She's so freaking good. We just got, just watching her in full flight and just have the, the balls of steel, as everyone has kind of said, that she just to play the idol for Brooke there. And it all just went across so well. So I had the information, and I was probably quite surprised why the Brooke was so upset that I voted for her.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
Yeah, like the fact that it opened up the opportunity for us to like flip Jackson. She was still quite like, yeah, and even Keely's probably more joking about it, but they were calling me a wimp and stuff, and we're having a big laugh. But I was like,
they called you a traitor, I think, to your face.
Yeah, and we were like so frustrated with the newbies and how they were kind of calling themselves the underdogs and stuff like that. Like, we were in the same camp. We were on the bottom there, like, in the same boat. So like I was with them, but I just knew that I had to get out of this situation. We still needed another number. We still needed someone else, because like we're now out of idols, and Brooke wins immunity or whatever, then it's probably going to be me, right? It's a tough spot to be in. So like having the foresight to be throwing that vote on Brooke 72 hours before, or 48 hours before it needed to happen, for it to come back around and like help our alliance, like I didn't expect her to be as like kind of bitter about it, but yeah, she really was. So especially like, she's a returning player. She knows what it's like to be on the bottom and to fight, and for it to work out. And I explained it, and it, like the discussion that we were having was like, who's our biggest opportunity here? Like, who can we actually flip to come and work with us? And Brooke and Keely were kind of trying to go for Cameron. Like I hadn't given up hope, but I felt like I'd finally burnt it with him. Like there was probably not enough coming back from there, and he just wasn't serious about it. But yeah, Brooke had this weird relationship with Cameron where it was so, Cameron wanted Brooke gone so badly, but joked about it so openly that maybe if they actually could have worked if he, had it. Like, it was still a long shot, but I don't know. Yeah, you probably needed Cameron to be a bit more of a dynamic player in that moment to do something, and it just was never going to happen. But I saw that that Jackson was the one who could be an option, right? And I saw what the mutual benefit was. I saw what what he had to gain with differentiation, and to take a risk, and to if all the big players got picked off, that he'd be at the top of that, and the passengers would just be at the end, and he wouldn't be. So like the foresight that I had to make that happen, I was just incredible. And then the execution to actually pull it off at the same time, it's like, holy shit! Like that was like the social side of my redemption really kind of playing through. Like I've had a strategic move with Asha under my belt, and now I have like a fantastic social move that I have threaded over 72 hours, like votes before putting things in place to come together. So like, well, the Asha vote, I think, will be my legacy move, and my poetic move there. I feel like, lining up Jackson the way that all kind of happened when it didn't really make sense for Jackson is just like an amazing social, like, legacy move for me as well.
Yeah, we need to talk about this, because it's one thing to convince Jackson to flip. It's another one to have him flip on his number one ally, someone that you have seen firsthand, like, get close with, starting on Baron 2.0. So what was the initial set of pitches that you were giving? And we certainly get, from our perspective at least, confessionals of Jackson outright being like, "Ha, fat chance, Simon, you're barking up the wrong tree." Did you get the sense over the course of the afternoon that you were moving the needle at all?
Well, it it was a long time coming. Like, you know, as I said, like it wasn't just like that afternoon, like that it happened. Like there were a lot more, like the conversations that happened that afternoon were obviously shown, but you know, there was a lot of time spent with Jackson to just lead the horse to water. It wasn't quite like I wasn't playing a manipulation game, but it was trying to play like a, you know, bring him into his own awareness as a survivor player in the bigger picture and where you kind of sit and what you need to do to actually have a chance at winning this thing. But it was in a way that Jackson was just the right kind of person to be receptive of it as an entertainer, as like someone who was quickly learning the game and the ins and outs of it. And it was huge. Like, not many people can pitch someone's best friend to someone and have it resonate, but it 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 was right in front of, like, the other alternative was the fact that Brooke goes, Simon goes, Ben or Jackson go next after that, and it was just like, yeah, he saw it as well as like as well as I could, and so he knew it was there. And then, you know, when I talking through it, when he was the one who voiced himself that, you know, hey, it's probably your biggest blind spot is probably right under your nose. Seeing him like get that and been like, holy shit, like I've actually done it. And it wasn't by any means like done and dusted. And like there are definitely times like, you know, he'd be leaning into that, going like, Simon's pitching me this, like, man, like what are you doing? Like, but there was just that little seed, enough, like a little wedge, like that you just, or a little wedge that you just driven into that crack to go like, it might just be enough. It might just sprout into an idea, a fully fledged idea. So amazing foreshadowing with the you know, confessionals that he gave, being like, you know, Simon, fat chance, like, what do you, like, you idiot, like, the mum telling you to go and clean your room, like, you're not going to do it and stuff like that. And then that afternoon, you know, just having the final, the final chance to really make him think about it. Like, we're running out of time. Like, even at 8, like, with there's not many people left, like there's only so many opportunities to wiggle. So he was definitely thinking about it. And then the final pitch at Tribal Council, yeah, you just got to make the most of like those moments. And Jackson was just one who, yeah, I'd always had a good relationship with. I'd always worked hard for. I'd built some trust back up with the Brooke vote, and I just knew just speaking in his language and as a performer, just gave a big serve of what he wanted, like right in front of him. And just it was incredible that he turned around and slammed the door in my face and said, you know what, like, you know, this is show business, baby. And he goes, yeah, and this is my show, and it's Brooke. Slams the door in my face and walks back to his seat. And I go, oh, well, that's done. So, you know.
I was going to say, yeah, how surprised were you when I've heard about this moment through numerous people, when he looks over at you all and actually mouths Ben's name, given the way that conversation ended? Did that take you by complete surprise?
It was like, yeah, I was like, oh, God, that sucks. But he went back to his seat and he sank. He sat down, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. Like, I knew, like, the cogs were turning. He was thinking about it. And then his body language changed. Like, he looked so disappointed in himself. And I'm like, what is he? Oh my God. And then he looks at me, and he didn't even mouth it. He just gave the slightest, smallest nod. And this just look of, it was really emotional. Like, it was a really, really hard decision for him. And I remember it just so vividly, like seeing his demeanor change, seeing his like aura like leave his body, and just being like a broken soul already, that he was like coming to terms with what he was going to do. And I turn around to Keelan and I go, holy fuck, it's happening. Like, it's happening. I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. And I couldn't believe it. Like, yeah, it was just insane. And as he walked back from the voting booth, didn't look at anyone. He just dragged his feet back. I'm like, come in, man. Like give us some kind of like you're about to vote Brooke out. Like, give us some performance there. But there was nothing. Like, it was so hard for him, and he did it, and I did it, and like, you know what? Like, that is, he makes it to the end. It's his move, and it's still very much his decision, his part of it. But I make it to the end. I make it to the end with Jackson. Holy shit, that's my move. It's really, really special to see that kind of move and happen in the theater of tribal council.
So here we go. We get into the final 8, Simon, where it all goes down here. So it's interesting that you brought this up in our exit interview that Jackson was pitching Brooke. That despite this idea that, like, okay, now Jackson's welcome into Club Kaput, it's the 4 of you, that he still did want Brooke out. So was the sense that the 4 of you were sticking together until a certain point, or was this for you a little bit of getting back into that mindset of like, all right, got to negotiate this relationship with Brooke and Keely while also keeping Jackson at bay, despite the fact that he still wants to go for Brooke?
Yeah. I think it was like you trying to jam so much into that exit there.
Sorry.
So yeah, no, that's all right. But to like a little bit further context, it's like that night where he's turned on Ben, he's like, Jackson's so adamant on getting Brooke out. Like, he wanted Brooke gone. He didn't really want to play with Brooke at this point in time. So after that, and then like the night before we go to the challenge for at final 8, like that night, it was about 3 a.m. The sun was just about to start coming up, which the night producers can't film at anymore because the light plays with their infrared cameras a little bit too much. But I've had Jackson down on the beach and kind of went, like, I've given him, he's come across, I've given him his family reward. Like, we've been there, like, he's still kind of, and the information I had, like, yeah, he wants Brooke gone. So I floated like an end game pitch to Jackson to be like, look, you have given me so much. I will take your rock. I'll
give you my vote.
I will vote for you at the end, and like, let's get this done. Like, I will move on. We're working backwards as well from like 5, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, I know Brooke's probably motivated to turn on me at some stage as a challenge beast down the track. So working back, or we can get the jump. I know you want to get her out. So like, I floated the idea to Jackson as a way of like, when the time is right, like, potentially it's like, I said that Brooke is probably motivated to move on me at 7, or move me immediately down the track, so I can like get the jump on her at 7. And just as a way of being like, oh, I'm going all in on Jackson here. Like, the whole thing is going all in with Jackson as opposed to like voting Brooke out next, right? And Jackson took that information and went straight back to Brooke and said, oh yeah, Simon wants you out, so.
Oh.
So Brooke had that info. Like, that's the only way that could have got out, and that became quite evident in Brooke's exits and stuff. So I only found that out. Like, I think I might have found out in jury or whatever, but like, that kind of became clear then of what that looked like. So that 360 from Jackson kind of caught me by surprise as well. Just how, like, I thought he came over with Simon, Brooke, and Keely, but I thought he was kind of coming back with me a lot in that, as kind of thought I would have been his number 1 within that scenario. So that was a bit of a misread by me there, and just the wrong kind of pitch. Like, I shouldn't, like, probably I use the information that I have with his intentions, relaying his information back to him, which ended up biting me in the butt.
All right.
Yeah.
So seems like rocks might actually be happening here. Brooke wins immunity. Cameron pulls you aside and says, the votes are on Keely. And this seems to light a bit of a fire under you because you're like, crap, I might actually have to draw a rock. Now I have to sort of face the consequences of it. Even though, to your point, you were sort of just going to wait and then play dumb, for lack of a better term, when it ended up happening. What made you believe Cameron saying that the vote was on Keely, considering the rather contentious dynamic the two of you had up to that point?
I think there was enough of like a us and them, enough of a stalemate to think that like we actually could get through to that point. And the motivation for the votes to be on Keeley would actually leave me exposed to be the one drawing rocks. So there was enough logic there from the way he explained it, but it wasn't. It was a lot more simple in his head and not that complicated. Cameron also had some fucking stupid pitch to me about. Have you heard about this?
Tell me more.
No, Cameron. There was this whole at my final trouble council, and I'm so freaking glad that this whole saga didn't make it into the edit because it was so stupid. Cameron gave me like this fake idol and like literally like a piece of coral wrapped in canvas, and I'm like, okay, I wonder where you got this idea from. And was like, I'm going to give this to you, but like I want you to play it and like pretend it's real, and then I can like convince my crew that you've got a fake idol, and then we can vote out Keeley, and then you vote for Keeley, but then I'm the one who convinces you to vote. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And here I am, just like Keeley and I just going along with this. Well, no, I think he's telling me, and then I relayed it, and like I'm just going along with this stupid Cameron idea. And so the plan that he was kind of pitching to me that we see on the edit is like this cleaned up version from a bloody stupid plan about some fake idol that is just, it's just embarrassing. It would have been embarrassing. And I'm really glad, like, for his sake and for mine, that like that kind of shenanigans wasn't in there. So then at the point he was like, I think Simon's got a fake idol. I'm like, I think I stood up, I threw it in the fire and pulled it out and was like, threw the coral away, threw the canvas in the fire. And I said to Cameron, mate, if you actually want to play with me, vote with me.
Oh,
and yeah, so that kind of, that's kind of how that ended. And it was, just like the final straw for that. And then sure enough, like they put the votes on me. I don't know if that changed or if I was just always the primary target there, but I feel like retrospectively, from what I've been able to piece together, like Brooke obviously found that information out about me telling Jackson about maybe we've got to be considerate about Brooke. That then Brooke was motivated, like as soon as she had the shot and she knew that she wasn't going far, and she'd had a streak of not winning the necklaces and she needed to, like she took her shot there and went for it. And I think the comments of what people said about is that a good or a bad move for Brooke kind of speak for all themselves. Which
that why you gave her the standing ovation. You're like, yes, you understand now.
No, that was just a standing to applaud like a 100-day player who had played a phenomenal game. Like, God, Brooke was my like inspiration and idol, like to watch. So it was just a nice thing. It had nothing to do with that. But yeah, it was like, I think it was a short-sighted move from Brooke, but with the information that she had, like, if you know that someone has floated your name, it's probably not a bad thing to move on, especially at that point in the game. And if you think you can win every challenge, then, absolutely go for it. But it's an absolutely horrible tactic to ever try to implement, because the game is built for so many different players and people.
Yeah. So that said, when the votes come in and you're involved in the tie, like in retrospect, did you see anything change in Brooke's demeanor that might have indicated she would have flipped? What did you think the chances were that you would go to rocks and you would then de facto be safe to survive to the final 7?
I was a little bit confused when I saw my name, being like, oh, I didn't actually think that I actually thought I would have been up for rocks. I was probably still a bit more nervous about that. But Brooke had a conversation with me in the afternoon, which was a little bit like, how are you feeling? Are you ready to go home? Like, how you, like, as in kind of came about it as like, we're kaput, but how are you feeling about it in general? Like, our paths are, we're running out. If we go home to rocks tonight, how do you feel about that? And I pulled on a big, I read the situation. I didn't know what to make of the situation, but I knew that I needed to double down. I think I pulled out the crocodile tears for that one, to be like, I'm not ready to go home. Like, we come so far, like we're getting so close. Like I remember tearing up, but that was one of the few fake times I've really put on tears to try to solidify something there. But she was sussing me out. I now identify that just because she had that information there, and I didn't anticipate that getting back to her as at that kind of point in time. So that was probably the only thing, but there's nothing I could have done to change that anyway. Like, I had already had conversations with Jackson and had kind of gone that way. And I mean, as soon as my name came out, like, I don't know if Brooke already knew that. I can't remember if I heard whispers retrospectively or just after the fact, if Brooke had maybe knowledge that it might have been my name in there, and like, if it was Simon, she'd be willing to actually throw one on. I don't know the full ins and outs of that. And you probably a better question for Brooke or someone else. And she made a decision based on that information, which is, I don't know, the paper, like what you have at the time there, like, fine, but like, not great for the overall alliance. Like, and I know that I spoke to Jackson about, like, I'm gonna have to move potentially on Brooke at some stage. Like, I mean, God, if we all want to win, like, we all have to vote everyone out at some stage, right?
Valid.
But we had worked so freaking hard to get off the bottom, for so long, and then to come so close, and even to get Jackson to flip across, that it was all me then to, like, save Brooke, essentially. Like, it was so, we came so close, and then, like, even, we were in a better position on rocks, even with Brooke with the necklace. Like, she had nothing to lose there, to then, would have been Keely or myself potentially pulling a rock, and or Jackson and myself, like, versus so 2-3 chances to pull rock. We had a 40% chance of coming out of majority. Sorry, 60% chance of coming out of majority. So, like, those odds are good, and I don't think I would have been willing to throw away a majority at that point in time. Like, you just don't get to a majority at 7 only to go back to a 3-3 split again. And Brooke did that again. Oh no, Brooke didn't. But, like, she managed to vote Cameron out. But, like, it was is that right? Is that she? Oh no, she flipped. Yeah. Like, you take by taking me out, she put herself in a lower minority, and then managed to get back to a 3-3.
Right.
Yeah, but, like, I don't know. It's just, you say those things, but, like, at the time, like, there are kind of having a couple of numbers at those critical points, like 7-5 and 3, 7 and 5 in particular, or 7-5-9. Like, it's you want to have some people with you, so you've got to be on the right side of the numbers there.
Yeah, well, let's briefly touch upon your final vote that you would cast in this season, and I guess in your Survivor career here. It seemed natural from our perspective for you to vote for Jackson. You outright promised it, but you even said, right, in your voting confessional for him, like, how much you admired watching him be able to sort of find his footing and grow into playing this game. Was it always as open and shut for you in those final couple days, especially?
Like, I've heard a couple of, like, bits and pieces about me being an advocate for Jackson even in jury, but, like, I was there with him the whole way through. I saw him, change and flourish, like, on the way through his game. But, like, I also didn't see Caleb's game at all. Like, I didn't really get to play with Caleb or anything there. And then I felt like with this, even say some support from that, Mark was just so hell bent on Caleb that I almost felt like a little bit defensive in terms of being like, hey, you guys going to consider, like, everything, or you just might make your mind up for, Caleb. Like, I get why Mark voted for Caleb, but then the others, like, you're just voting for your friends, or, like, what's going on here? So it was kind of like, I'll probably have that conversation with Cameron more so than anyone else, because I was his roommate in jury. But just trying to get people to just consider, like just you don't make up your decision before you hear someone's pitch, right? Like, because it's not all, you just don't know what someone's going to say. Like, we're all chasing the dragon with, like, the Christy Bennett, like, the final pitch, like, amazing to see, like, someone can articulate their story and kind of come up with, how they're pitching it, like, amazing. So, like, it wasn't all cut and dry for me. And like, because I hadn't seen Caleb's game, like we hadn't played with each other, like we had, a top line relationship, but he wasn't ever giving me anything out there. I never the only time we've really had like interaction was like telling us that, yeah, he's going to vote with us with Mark to vote. I can't remember who we voted for that night, but I'm like, okay, like I'm happy to believe you, but I also have the necklace, and I don't have skin, don't have skin in the game. Like I'm not going to be a ricochet here either way. So like I'm happy for Mark to, probably the Mark vote, yeah. Happy for Mark to go home here. So that was kind of like saw a glimpse of it, but all the other times out there, I didn't see the double-sided, two-sided agent that Caleb was playing. I saw him running off and catching crabs or opening coconuts during the scramble, and kind of not, because even in the bits that I saw on TV were interesting, but I saw him like, initiate conversations, then leave and disappear. And there's just a lot of him like floating around in the jungle, like out there at that critical point. So I was just, I was always intrigued by, when was he actually driving his game as opposed to just being a passenger, like, through it and just, along for the ride, and just ended up here at the end. Like I'm very, like, I wanted to hear it. Like I wanted to hear Caleb's story. I wanted, like, what have you done? Like, what's your big thing? Because Mark had spoken so highly about it in jury. Mark wanted to get a t-shirt that said, I love Caleb, and wear it to the final trial count or something like that. Like it was,
go full Amber.
Yeah, it was crazy. The whole, like, just, yeah, how in that camp he was there. So like, I'm like, yeah, show me, tell me, like, I want to see this. And unfortunately, like the poor bugger, like, I mean, he's kind of said it himself, it was a shit pitch, right? And he just wasn't able to articulate that in itself. So I couldn't, after not seeing it and then not hearing it, it was just I couldn't, there was not even a consideration there to be able to vote for Caleb. And I was probably a little bit disappointed, actually, that I don't know, I grew up loving, like, in the old school, even like I say, Australian Survivor seasons 1 to 5, what inspired me. But like that final pitch is always so imperative, like it's so important. And we've seen, like, they say, Christy Bennett, do an amazing, sort of flip the tides. And I don't know, like it's such a big part of the game where you get to like tell everything that you haven't done. And maybe Jackson's game was a little bit more visible, but didn't have the friends there. But he was so like humble and like compassionate. And I felt like he was able to, like, when he was called out by Blanche about not knowing things about him, he owned his mistakes. It was a beautiful pitch on the way through. But I think like there was some kind of frustrations in the same way that the newbies, the underdogs, were sick of my speeches, were kind of sick of Jackson's performative nature at the time, and just voted for their friends. So I was kind of like a bit upset to see, like, how, like, just that some people just, like, it went in, was just like, yeah, like, I'm just going to vote for my friend. We didn't see, like, there was not emphasis put on that final pitch, because if there was, it was it's chalk and cheese compared to the performances that night.
Well, the last thing I want to ask, Simon, is going back to almost the very first thing we talked about here, which is some of your final words that you end up saying. And I will not interrupt you with a wayward boat horn here.
Big foghorn.
Exactly, because you spoke so much about how you were inspired. Again, your fandom absolutely shines through here by the people that you watched through these first 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping your legacy across 3 seasons, over 100 days of Australian Survivor, what do you hope your impact is on the next generation of Australian Survivor players?
I really hope that people, like, lean in to the show and play for the right reasons. I hope that they, you wear your heart on your sleeve, you embrace your successes just as much and even more to embrace your failures. Because yeah, it's not easy out there. And it can, yeah, in terms of a legacy, you go in and, like, just give it a crack and just make the most of every moment. This is not a stepping stone for, going on to other TV shows. This is not a platform to make you an influencer. This is not like, going to, change your life if you do not play the game in the first place. Like, lean into that, make the most of that. Things might come, but like, do that first. Don't be worried about the other things down the track. In terms of legacy in the game, like, be creative, like break things where you can. I handed the necklace over like to Rich, like the first time that had been done. How long has the concept of rocks been around for? But then, like, to break that concept that's been in the rule book and use it in a way that no one else has done in, how many seasons of, Global Survivor and 12 seasons of Australian Survivor, no one's come up with that concept. So some blue sky thinking in a way that when you're on the bottom, like fighting for your life, like, I think that's really important. And I hope that people get creative and just make the most of it. And respect the players who paved the way for them.
Respect your elders, players.
Yeah, even the way that, like, I hold the utmost respect the players from seasons 1 to 5. The good, the bad, the ugly, the guinea pigs who, put their time out there in the early days of Samoa and went through some pretty shit times to evolve this game from mateship and loyalty into the beast that it is today in Australian Survivor. And I'm just so proud that I have left, I guess, my mark on it in a way, and have been a character that people have been able to cheer against or cheer for, but have made them feel something. Just make the most of every single moment you have out there.
Well, I made the most of every single moment I had getting to sit down with you here, Simon, and chew through this game, because, again, the thing I absolutely adore about you is how much you will throw every single muscle, organ, bone into all things Survivor. It's clear, like, the passion and absolute love you have for this game, even if it doesn't love you back at certain points. It's just so incredibly infectious, and it makes me so happy it's odd to say that you went out on top, considering that you end up placing, in 8th, you don't end up winning. But as you talked through a couple times, like, the redemption you were able to find along the way, to be able to make this big vote happen from a strategic perspective, to swing someone over to vote out their number one ally. These are no small feats. And so, if
and
this
I,
is...
and I think, and on that, I think I had like one of the greatest challenge runs as well. Like,
yeah, you
at
won
the same
8
time,
eight immunity challenges between, only 2 times making the merge. Like, there's a lot to speak about here, and I'm glad you're able to speak about it, Simon. So even though it does sadden me to know that there's, a good chance that there might not be more of you to come, it regardless does not make me any more unhappy that we got to see you truly shine in this season. And thank you so much for letting us in on some of those shining moments over the course of this conversation.
Oh, mate, thank you so much for your time and your investment into Australian Survivor. It's so great to have, like, so much support in the community, and it's been a wild ride. And like, I'm so excited. We have so much great talent here in Australia, and so many great players to come up, and like, I'm looking forward to seeing who returns and how they return and how they grow as players. I can't wait to watch, like, All Stars 2 from the comfort of my couch, and just enjoy it for what it is, because I want my show back without me being in it. It's not the same. So it's been great. So thank you to everyone for following along, and just loving this show as much as I do, because it's really freaking cool.
Well, if people want to check out all the praise you will lavish upon future seasons and much more, how can people keep track of you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram is really like where I'm at if you want to follow along my chippy adventures. Simon.me89. And I've also got some snuffed hats going as well. A few of them kicking around left. They're all like 40% off as well. There are so many I have left over in my garage downstairs that I need to go on before my
you were making promises to offer them to people on the island?
Yeah, I've still got a few to send out to a couple of people, actually, but I've had so much going on over the last little bit, in between the show going to air and working chippy job, my content creator job and stuff, and I've got a few going out. But it's been a really cool way to, like, just make something that's bigger than me, that the fans can kind of get around as well. That just kind of embodies my passion for it as well. And I got some of those stubby holders with my with the little tiki torch flames on it as well. So I've got a few of them left that are going with the hats. So yeah, go check it out. It means the world to me. Thank you for everyone who's grabbed one of those.
Well,
can we give a shout out to like Shannon? We've missed as much. I loved your coverage of the season, mate. It's been fantastic. I think you have some great takes on it all, and can really just see through the edit sometimes where you don't get the full context and stuff. And I really like you've definitely stood up for me a couple of times throughout the season as well. So thank you very much for that. Yes, I do miss Shannon. I do miss having Shannon around. So yeah, can't wait to have her back when she's ready. But we got a lot of mic, and that was awesome.
Well, the pleasure was all mine, man. And thank you for helping contribute to making this truly a legendary season, and for making this a legendary deep dive as well. So let us know your thoughts in the comments, people. I'm sure you have plenty of them, but don't let them be broadcast like a errant Reddit topic on a future season of Australian Survivor. All right, let's be cordial here. Check out the other deep dives if you haven't yet. I promise there's going to be at least one more in the pipeline as well. So
who's coming? Who's is it last one?
We've got Caleb. We're talking with the winner himself. So
good.
Our conversations about this season are not being snuffed anytime soon, even if my conversation with the man behind snuffed will be. So Simon, thank you again so much. This was truly such a fantastic pleasure. Thank you all so much for listening as per usual. Until next time, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.